All right, I'm going to call to order the Executive Committee meeting of March 20, 2026. If you would, please call the roll.
Chair Ryan.
Present.
Vice Chair Furr.
Here.
Member Shuham. Member Horland.
Here.
Member Mateo Bowen. Member Dunn. Member Rydell. Member Mead.
Here.
Member Caggiano.
Present.
Member AJ Ryan. Member Newton. Member Colborn. Member Murphy Salamone. Member Bright Cruz.
Here.
Member Geller.
All right, Mr. Cole, we have a quorum? Yeah. All right, if you would, please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we have public comment. Tammy?
Tammy Lettieri, Coconut Creek, Florida. Broward County wants to build a dangerous sludge dryer at the North County wastewater treatment plant in Pompano, fueled by methane emitted from the dump. Commissioner Furr says this is good use of the methane, but Waste Management already extracts it and converts it to electricity, which they sell to the grid to power homes. More importantly, the South County wastewater treatment plant in Hollywood uses a more sustainable and cost-effective method to process their sludge, known as anaerobic digestion. But that's not in the cards for North County, and I wonder why. Since the North County treatment plant has newly installed solar panels and may add wind turbines, it begs the questions, do they really need methane to power a sludge dryer, and who benefits from this? Not Deerfield, Coconut Creek, or Pompano. And what is the county doing to minimize trash and improve recycling rates within their own agencies? Using biodegradable single-use eating utensils is not enough and still generates waste. Every county agency and signer to the ILA should be required to recycle all cardboard and office paper and switch to double-sided printing for starters. Change is possible. Through a series of notices containing graphics and brief instructions, my HOA made significant gains reducing contamination in recycling bins in a little over a year. Perhaps it was the reminder that the landfill was closing or the warning that the county was running out of capacity at the existing incinerator and would lock us into a 40-year-long deal to transform trash into poisonous air. That really resonated with them. After all, incineration is the most expensive, toxic method of municipal solid waste disposal. But the message was clear. Less trash means more cash for them.
Thank you. Stephanie Pearson.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Pearson, here today representing the League of Women Voters of Broward County. The League of Women Voters has been involved in this long and carefully crafted process since the beginning. We've studied the issue over many years. We are convinced of the necessity of Broward cities and the county banding together for the long-term benefit of all of us. With more than 5 million tons of waste to dispose of and no place to put it, cooperation is the best way to ensure that in the long term we will have a system that will be less costly, gives the public more control, and benefits the environment. If we are short-sighted and balk at the small initial cost, we will pay later. We are in strong support of the master plan and the facilities amendment, which needs to be ratified so that we can go forward. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, any further comments, public comments? All right, I'll close public comments. We have a motion on the February 24, 2026 and March 2nd, 2026 minutes. Motion by Member Horland, second by Member Caggiano. Any discussion on those items? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, that passes. Executive Director update.
Thank you, Chair.
Mike.
Thank you, Chair. For the update, we've been just diligently working on getting this master plan together and also speaking with some of the cities, scheduling their workshops. We did have a workshop in Davie and in Weston. So that's really it.
Okay. I know we have a lot of business here today, and I appreciate that. We'll provide an additional Executive Director update in the Governing Board. All right, Cohen Resnick, financial statements, January 2026.
Hi, my name is Alex Patron. I'm a partner with the accounting firm Cohen Resnick. Here today to go over the financial position of Broward SWA as of the end of February 2026. The authority had cash and cash equivalents of $2,852,000. Its accounts of receivable balances were $834,000. When subtracting the entity's liabilities of approximately $141,000 from their total assets, the authority's net equity position stood at $3,545,000. Based on its current financial position, Broward SWA has sufficient liquidity to meet its budgetary spending through the fiscal year ending September 2026.
All right. Thank you. Any questions for Cohen Resnick on the financial statements? Thank you, sir. All right. We have a number of subcommittee updates and what I would propose, assuming it's the will of the body, is to move those to the governing board so that we can provide the governing board members a full update. Is that fair? Anybody in opposition to that? All right. Let's move to the master plan and the financial modeling. Before I do that, I want to lay out what we're here as the executive committee to do. We are at a generational and historic moment. The executive committee has been working monthly for years and sometimes bi-weekly. We are presented today with the financial modeling. That's the last piece of the master plan, and we'll have a discussion about the facilities amendment. We all know the crisis we face, and there are still questions to be answered. But today, the executive committee will be called upon to either recommend or not recommend the master plan and facilities amendment to the governing board so that we can move forward to address the issues that are so critical. It is hard, and I'll raise it with the governing board, it's hard to imagine how hard and how long we've had to work on what for some people seems obvious, but the details are important. The impacts on the cities are important. The impact on the county is important. And what we're planning to do for the next 40 years is important. And so I thank the executive committee, the subcommittees, and all the work that's gone in. And this is the last piece. And I will turn to Daniel for this, and we will have in the governing board a detailed discussion as well. I know there's a full presentation. For the purposes of the executive committee, we don't need the background information that we've been working on and that we're quite familiar with. We need to move right to the financial modeling, if that's fair, Daniel.
Fair.
Okay, the floor is yours, sir.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, Executive Director, General Counsel, members of the Executive Committee and Governing Board. Daniel Deitch here representing the SES team. I want to thank all of you for your engagement. I want to thank my colleagues that we've been working collaboratively over the last nearly 2 years to reach this point. I also want to acknowledge the stakeholders that come to meetings. They are tireless in their advocacy and engagement, not only the citizenry that has been showing up, but the organizations, the business interests that have helped us get to this point. As was indicated, I do want to cut straight to the financial analysis. The detailed financial plan document was included in the backup, and we simply want to walk through the mechanics of the flow of funds, and we will reiterate this at the next meeting with the governing board. Elisa, if we could jump to slide 5, please. And I would like to invite my colleague, Vita Quinn, who you're all familiar with, that we've been working with through the performance of this work to arrive at this point.
Morning, Vita Quinn. Just to provide some additional clarity on the different phases that we're anticipating, because there have been questions about how the funds actually flow. We tried to make something simple here to sort of break it down a little bit more. And I think it also helps to explain the administrative end of things and how that money will actually move physically. So phase one being the way things are done right now. Monies are coming from the ILA communities on a population basis. And while that is an approximation of waste generation, it's not the most fair way to distribute funds or to ask for funds from the member communities. So entering into phase two, the anticipation is that there's going to be a disposal surcharge. And that's money paid on every ton of waste that passes through disposal and processing facilities, which I think we all can agree is a much more fair way of charging for the waste that's being generated within the county. The way that works in practice is that the haulers come to bring the solid waste or the recyclables to the disposal or processing facilities. At that time, they pay the surcharge in addition to the tipping or processing fee. That is going to be retained by those disposal facilities and then remitted to the Solid Waste Authority. The one thing I want everyone to take away from this, that means that the ILA communities do not have any additional administrative burden. This is handled between the authority and the disposal or processing facilities. Now, entering phase three, once we have some facilities or some drop-off sites and the authority is fully operating, we can move to the implementation of a non-ad valorem special assessment. That, again, is not going to be administrative burden on the ILA communities because the authority can work with the county to make sure that that appears on the residents' tax bills. That will be a separate line. And again, as those funds are collected, that will be remitted back to the Solid Waste Authority. The way that we're anticipating this will look in terms of finances for the individual communities is that while there will be a surcharge that will be passed on, it's through the collections rates, right? So the hauler is paying that at the processing or disposal facilities. That will be passed on through the existing collections rates. But with the now improved contracting authority or contracting power of the authority to negotiate tipping fees and processing fees, we're anticipating that that would help to offset any increase that would happen in the collections rates due to the surcharges. Again, this will be phased in over time. We understand that the communities have existing collections agreements. So within the financials that you've seen, we are anticipating the phased in as each individual community has the ability to begin to have those contracts. The funding mechanisms here are the same that I just explained, but this puts the numbers to it. We're anticipating that when the surcharge begins, it's $2 a ton. The surcharge will be in place for a couple of years as we're getting the drop-off sites constructed, land acquisition, all the things associated with that, and begin to operate it. There will be some overlap with the surcharge and the non-ad valorem assessment as we're trying to get that implemented. Any city who has tried to implement a non-ad valorem special assessment, you know that there's quite a lot of work to get that established initially. So the surcharges will likely continue until the funds begin to be received from that assessment. The dollars per ton is just the best way that we can express this to you, the anticipated cost that residents might pay, with the understanding that any numbers that you've seen about the anticipated cost per household is that with the waste generation study, the information collected, on the average, residents within Broward County generate approximately 1.3 tons per year. So that can give you an idea. But again, the apportionment methodology and the way the non-ad valorem special assessment works out, it's not going to be technically dollars per ton. Whoops. This is just in phase 3 to give you an idea about what we're talking about. So many cities now have a special assessment on their tax bill. When the authority creates its assessment, it will be a separate one, and that would be just a second line on that tax bill. So the authorities or the city's individual assessments will still go back to the city to pay for the collections. The authority's assessment is a separate line that we will go straight to the authority. The cities will not have to have any involvement in that portion of it. Then I'll let Daniel talk about the processing.
Okay. So one of the important aspects of our work is to make sure that it's in alignment not only with the interlocal agreement, but also with the facilities amendment. So in the facilities amendment that will be presented to you in a moment, Article 24 addresses maximum service charges, and it's really the safeguard for all ILA members. This analysis is based both on market research and also actual costs that have been negotiated through the global agreement that the county holds. For recyclable materials, we are anticipating, and again, this is using the economies of scale, the flow control that will be enacted if the authority continues beyond August. We know that there's ample capacity for processing recyclables within Broward County. We have estimated that maximum cost to be $110. The authority still rests with the governing board in the event that the cost is greater to assess those conditions at that time. When we look at yard trash, we're looking at it both in terms of disposal and for beneficial use, and that's why you see two different rates here. Again, maximum service charges, and the same with Class 1 waste, and again, to avoid the vernacular of the industry, that's really household waste or putrescible waste. And just to remind you, the only capacity, landfill capacity for putrescible waste is the Monarch landfill, and through a negotiated settlement, they will not be accepting that kind of waste after this year. And then Class 3 waste, which is dry waste, basically bulk, construction and demolition debris, and the like. This is the rate that is negotiated currently. And I think the important takeaway from that is with the global agreement, you can see in action the benefit of working together, because with tonnage, you can secure better pricing, and that's exactly what the county has done. And we think that we can build on that model to secure favorable pricing for all communities. It's also important to take away that the surcharge and the assessment that Vita just spoke about, that is really to pay for the operation of the authority and all the services associated with that. The tipping fee, we believe, in many cases it will be preferable to what is currently being charged within your respective collection contracts. So we think that there may be an opportunity for an offset of total charges by a reduced processing or disposal fee with the negotiated rates. We'll be going over this again during the governing board meeting and perhaps in greater depth, but we wanted to give you the broad brushstrokes and the contours of where we landed.
Right. If you could go to the next slide as well, I think it's important to just go over the process in the phases and what's, at least as the plan in the master plan, what would be performed by the Solid Waste Authority in each of these phases.
Okay. And again,
And I know we'll go over it again with the governing board, but I think it's important for the members of the executive committee.
Elisa, if we could advance to slide 11, please. And the next slide, please. Okay. So these are broad brushstrokes. There's far more detail beyond this, but in phase one, that will enable us to go out on the street, issue solicitations to get binding pricing for processing of recyclables and yard trash and disposal. And again, we believe that with the economies of scale, we will have increased bargaining power and we'll be able to secure preferable rates compared to what is being paid now. It also provides long-term stability and predictability, right? So while the master plan had a 40-year planning horizon for financials, we looked out over 20 years, and we will continue to assess where we are at every step in the way, and it's really the governing board that has the responsibility and the opportunity to provide further guidance as we go along. As Vita mentioned, we want to move away from the population-based revenue-generating mechanism and move to a fairer approach, which is based on actual solid waste tonnage. We've already started a really impressive public education and outreach program, and we will continue to enhance it. If you remember when we presented on our education and outreach white paper. We have budgeted $10 per household in initial years for education and outreach because we know that it has to be a full court press so that we are meeting people where they are and very consistent. And while that funding level does decrease over time, it doesn't mean we're taking our foot off the gas. We have learned from other communities that that is an ongoing effort. It has to be sustained, and it requires the support of all of you, your respective communities, so that we are helping people to make better decisions. It's one of the pillars of the master plan, effectuating behavior change and changing the way that we think about waste so that we can extract the maximum value from the waste stream resources. We are also, as you know, we're planning for 8 recycling drop-off centers, and in part that is to meet people where they are, to make it convenient to recycle, not just curbside, but where people are out in their daily lives to have those facilities available. And on a parallel path, we're already moving forward with and will continue to develop and implement targeted waste stream programs that address C and D, the heaviest portion and one of the largest portions of our waste stream, commercial recycling, and moving towards organic waste processing beyond yard trash. As we move into phase 2, we have already done a preliminary siting study, but we will be moving forward with acquiring land for the drop-off centers. We'll start developing and operating those centers over that phase 2 period. We will continue the public education and outreach program, and we will start to build capital reserves for the future that really provides the economic stability to address unforeseen conditions and plan for capital investments as they are needed. And lastly, in phase 3, we're anticipating completing all of the drop-off centers, expanding the diversion programs. There's a deep dive on innovative technologies, both in terms of facilities and software and hardware. We are going to continue to monitor the marketplace to identify opportunities where we can leverage that innovation. We continue the education and outreach, and we continue building capital reserves.
All right. Thank you, Daniel. I'll open up the questions from the executive committee. Just to clarify on the surcharge of $2 a ton, the average household generates 1.3 tons per year. So the estimated per household cost begins at roughly $2.60 per household.
Per year, correct.
For the whole year.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. I just wanted to clarify. Member Mateo-Bowen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Daniel, for your presentation. I know when I had this discussion with my commission last week during our workshop, the reoccurring question that folks kept asking was, in regards to pricing, when we talk about the tipping surcharge and all of the costs, will this be absorbed in our millage rate? How are we estimating that we're increasing this every year? They just wanted a guesstimate of the added cost because we want to make sure that we put funds aside to absorb any, and our residents don't carry that burden.
So it would depend on how your collections rates are paid for right now. So again, when the haulers go to the disposal or processing facilities, they are paying that surcharge. So then they're going to come back to the cities and say, we're going to need to raise your collections rates. So
but to be clear, what we're talking about per household is, again, roughly $2.60 per household for the whole year. But the issue of increase, especially as it goes to the millage, that's one of the slides that you have it laid out for each year. In 2033, it's projected to be $2.86 per ton, right? Yes. Which would roughly be, depending where we're at, we're $3.50 or whatever per household for the whole year.
Yes. Okay. So in that instance, roughly 30 cents a month. But understanding that some communities, if you're saying that desire to subsidize, that would be the number that you are looking at per household per year. But again, it does have to do with how those collections rates are paid right now.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that. And then my follow-up question that my colleagues asked me is, say this master plan does move forward, how frequently are we updating this? How frequently are we revisiting this? Because we don't want to move forward and maybe something in the master plan doesn't work and we want to revamp it. So are we, as the governing body, the one that will request the revamp, or?
Yeah.
Okay, so how frequently are we thinking about
I think
doing
that's
that?
going to, if we get by today,
Okay.
if we get by today, that's the task. Hello, sir. How are you? Nice to see you. That is the task of the executive committee and the governing board to set
Okay.
that.
Okay.
And in combination with not only the financing, which is important, right?
Right.
We're going to be examining technology, compliance with contracts, whether the facilities are working. This cannot be a 40-year master plan that in the 40th year we first look at it.
Correct.
So let me just say this, unlike the RRB structure, each city has a seat at the table. Every city has a seat at the governing board. Every city can say at any time, hey, it's time to reevaluate this. It's a really important question. And there has to be, if we get by today, there has to be a commitment of the governing board to examine this in perpetually. And we know that particularly in the first two phases, that examination is going to be very intense, right? It's going to be essentially monthly as we're dealing with negotiating contracts and looking at compliance and dealing with the city issues. The bigger concern is that there, slips in some sort of sense of lack of urgency in year 5 or year 10, and we can't let that happen.
And to your point, Mr. Chair, thank you for that. In regards to the other municipalities that have not given their buy-in, are we continuing to engage them and let them know that this is a changing document or a working document? Because from my conversations with my colleagues in those cities is that they want to see what we bring up, and then if something they do not like, they still won't join. But if there's room to make additions and edits, they're more likely to come on board. So I just really want to state that for the record, that this is a working document and something that we're working to benefit our entire county. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And it's an excellent point that Member Matera-Ball raises, in that from the outset of the Solid Waste Working Group through the initiation of the Solid Waste Authority, this has never been an us and them process, at least from the perspective of those of us who've been working on this. And that is that every community should be paying attention to this. Our job was to build a system that would encourage communities that had decided to sit on the sidelines to join. That's our job. It's our job to make sure that all communities that are around the table have a voice. And I think it's an excellent point we can't lose sight of for the 3 communities that have not joined for whatever reason. The door is always open, but beyond that, we want their ideas and where this can be improved. And I appreciate us always maintaining that while understanding that we have an obligation to continue to engage as communities. And that's an excellent point. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Member Horland?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Daniel, you've heard that the financial modeling is the most critical part for all of us in this room. And having sat through a couple of presentations this week, I want to play devil's advocate and just have absolute clarity before we go forward today and have full confidence in the numbers that are presented to us. We've seen that per ton number come down from 6 to 4 to 2. What I want to ask you today is 2 very quick questions. The tonnage report that is online and that's been presented previously, and I know that some of the cities, including mine, have expressed some concerns about the numbers on that. The Broward mass balance number, for example, City of Plantation, when we back out bulk and C&D, the numbers on here are 3 times more than our actual numbers. So my concern about that is I want to make sure that the accuracy is there and how this is affecting our financial modeling.
Do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, it's a fair question. So let me walk you back. Where we started almost 2 years ago was combining population data, waste composition data, and projections. So we started with census information, and then there was more current information specific to Broward County. That formed the baseline to project or to estimate where we are with tonnage today and what we can reasonably expect in the future. there is some imprecision with projections, and we know that. We've also validated the total tonnage assigned to a given community, and we know that there can be differences between what is assigned to residential and to non-residential. And for that reason, that's why we focused on a tonnage basis, because one, it's fairer, and because there's a nexus with who generates and what the cost is. But we are confident in the numbers that are presented. And as was indicated, how often do we go back and reassess this? And I'll ask Vita to talk about best practices from financial analysis, but this will be a failure if a master plan sits on the shelf. Mm-hmm. It was stated, it's a strategic document. It is the plan, but ultimately, activation of the plan rests with the governing board and the executive committee, depending on where the specific responsibility is. So there will be continuous engagement to make sure that there is alignment with the numbers, the real-world conditions, and the policy direction from this body.
Okay, last very quick question, anticipating questions that you may be getting and I just want to say, putting on another hat as president of the Broward League of Cities, I will be present at as many of those presentations as possible, because I think it's important that our colleagues see that the league is also supporting this initiative. So I think it's important for all of us to be in support as these workshops take place. When we talk about recycling rates, and as we are trying to educate people and get more people recycling, I want to be absolutely clear if those questions come up about a city's overall cost increasing. So it stands to reason if we are, say, for example, paying $57.49 on Class 1 waste, if we're diverting more of that to recycling, costs are going to go up, right? Because we're paying more for the recycling rates.
Yeah, but it really is marginal. When you think about the total amount that is generated per household, a portion is for recycling, a portion is for disposal. So while the numbers look big, when you actually apportion it to the stream, it really is a marginal impact.
Okay, and I appreciate that, because I think those are the questions that we're going to be hearing. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Member Ferk, Vice Chair.
Thank you. And I appreciate Matea Bowen's comment on the living. I think we have to look at this as a living document. And there's a lot of questions out there right now. We all just got the numbers. We're all kind of looking at it. So I can understand the question, and it does need to be looked at constantly. I think that one of the places where I'm seeing where I can't quite figure it out is I look at the total tonnage, and maybe I'll look at Fort Lauderdale for an example. It's like 400,000 tons almost. And Sam, you had brought this up, that first we were looking at what the cost would be per ton and that kind of stuff. We were looking at their total tonnage, but there's a lot of that is commercial. So how do we just, when someone's bringing in the garbage to a place that's a disposal site, how are we going to be able to, and how does it work that we're able to distinguish between residential and commercial? How does that pass through work? Because I think for most of us, we're responsible to our citizens, and we want to make sure that that rate is at that, what we're talking about, $2, per person per household. But there's a whole nother side to this, that is the commercial rate. So how does that part work? And I guess every truck coming in is either residential or commercial truck. Is that what it is? And that's how you make the distinction?
But ultimately it wouldn't matter, because it's just going to be passed through in the collections rates.
But it would matter, because if you're asking the city to pay, that other part, they've got to be able to distinguish it.
If I may, so that you've hit on a very important issue. Months ago, when we said really the only way to address the concern that you've raised is to have contracts for processing and disposal. In the absence of flow control, right, we can talk about the 5 million tons that's generated in Broward County, but going out on the street to say, well, maybe in a year we'll have control, why would anybody want to respond to that? Because they're spending their good money to chase what isn't real yet. And that's why, right, we first sort of moved towards what are the ranges that we think are reasonable. And ultimately, we landed at the maximum service charges that were just presented to you, right? So once we go out on the street with solicitations, secure contracts, that's where really the authority has more influence. All of the ILA communities will gain the benefit of those rates, and we believe in many cases they are going to be less than what folks are paying today.
And I think this is important because I think, Sam, you caught this kind of, in terms of how you were looking at how everything looked like it was getting charged. And you kind of caught that distinction between what cities are, what residential and I thank you for that. Because I think it made, for people that were thinking, they were looking at what their tonnage was and they were multiplying, oh, wait a minute, we're going to be paying way more. That's a very important distinction. The other part, Denise, I think what you were talking about with, that's a good question. When you're asking about with recycle, if we're getting more recycling, are we paying a higher rate? One part is the lighter stuff, but the heavier stuff is actually going to be cheaper because of the leafage and all that kind of stuff. That part's actually going to be cheaper. So I think there is where the wash is. I think is that a fair assessment on that? Okay, because I mean, if you're hauling trees and stuff, that's a lot more than a plastic bottle. So.
All right, Member Rydell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm really going to ask Jamie some questions because I think it's important, and it piggybacks on what Member Mater Bowen said. I know we're all qualifying this as a living, breathing document, right? I usually agree that with the Constitution. Now, what's interesting is the Constitution is written, can't really be changed, can be interpreted, can be amended, right? Jamie, I want you to be very clear right now with this body of how the master plan can be changed, because in my interpretation, not that easy, can be activated on, can be, utilized, can't really be changed that easy, as well as how could the facilities amendment be changed? And I think that's a really important distinction. While I do agree with Member Mater Bowen, it is a living, breathing document. We need as a body to be crystal clear on how and when that living, breathing document gets changed. Because how I interpret it, not so easy, but I turn to our attorney.
Yes. Let me preliminarily say, that's an excellent point. There are aspects of this that are absolutely clear that it cannot be changed easily. As we'll present to the Governing Board and the Executive Committee is aware of, the facilities amendment makes very clear there are only certain solid waste facilities we can do. To make any change in that is a Governing Board process, and it's hard. It's intended to be hard. In terms of what happens on wind down, it's very clear. That can't be changed easily. But the issues of what is the right tonnage? What is the right amount? What is going on with which programs? How are we flipping the levers on each of the commodity streams to maximize the value and minimize cost? That's easily adaptable and almost meeting by meeting in a sense. That's an examination. But I think your point's really well taken because there are some who are extremely happy that there are aspects of this master plan that do not include certain solid waste facilities. And the message has to be very clear. It cannot be changed easily. That's a really good point. Jamie, can you summarize that?
Yeah, certainly. For the master plan, there's certain types of, quote, significant amendments. Those significant amendments are very difficult. They need a very high threshold vote of municipal population, et cetera. Those are things like an addition or removal of any category of waste from the jurisdiction, closure of a solid waste disposal facility, anything that affects the county obligations. Those are deemed to be significant amendments, and those are very difficult to amend. I mean, you say the U.S. Constitution can be amended, but it's difficult. That would be very difficult. Simple changes to the master plan, those can be done by the governing board, and there's voting requirements, et cetera, but it's not that difficult to do smaller changes. As far as the facilities amendment, there's also a whole long list of things that require a supermajority vote. There's some things that require everyone to agree. For example, to own or operate a solid waste disposal facility or waste energy plant requires an amendment to facilities amendment, and I think the population, cities representing the population of 80% of the municipal parties. So that's almost everyone would have to agree to something that significant. So I guess it really depends on how significant the amendment is. The small minor stuff, it's a working document. Those things can be changed. Big, significant, fundamental things need very high voting requirements.
So I think that's important to be brought up today, because I think the chair is right in terms of the implementation of these issues, right, in terms of tonnage and things like that. But I don't want the sentiment to be coming out of this room to us presenting to other people of saying, oh, it's, we can sit down every year and rehash certain components to it. Simply, I don't believe is true. Right. And that's my that's my legal opinion of it. Yep. Not that I'm the lawyer for the authority, but I think that's an important component that we all need to go into to not, I don't want to use the term misrepresent, but to properly educate our own municipalities on getting this to the finish line, fully support it. But I'll put the asterisk on it today, because we're ultimately being asked as an executive committee to vote to present it to I don't even know if we have quorum.
We do. We're ready.
Okay.
The governing board's fully.
I say it because if any member on this body has what I'll call a last minute change or a fundamental change or some asterisk, it's easier to implement before the vote. And I say that as just if there's some interpretive issue that there's an issue. I don't have one. It's a cautionary note that it's easier to do it now than in a month. That's all I got. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Member Geller, and then we'll go around the room. We do have a full quorum for the governing board, so the full presentation will be presented from start to finish.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To follow up on what Council Member, Commissioner President Orland was asking about, and a little on what Commissioner Matera Bowen was talking about, I think we're looking at two separate costs here, and this has always been my concern. You've got the $2.50 or so tipping fee, and then the roughly doubling on recycling from 50-something to about 110. Let me finish, and I'll get to that in a moment. So what I think is the issue, and this is why I've had some concerns, cities that are already doing recycling, I think will end up better off than they are now through our ability to generate more and better pricing power. Cities that are not currently doing curbside recycling or not recycling at all are going to end up paying a lot more than they are now, because they will be recycling when they're not now. I think everybody in this room recognizes that we should be recycling, but I'm afraid some cities, if they find that their recycling rates will double, are going to say no. Do we have a list? I'm sure we do. I am not familiar with it, as to what cities are currently doing curbside recycling and which are not, because again, if you are doing it, you'll be much better off under this agreement. If you're not doing it, you'll be doing the right thing, but it's going to cost your residents. Do we know that answer?
Yes, we have all of that. It's all been outlined and graphically and otherwise. Let me put a finer point on that. It's not that their recycling rate's going up. It's that they're not recycling it at all, and they're sending it all to landfill or WTE. So they're taking up, and I say this as you're one of the county representatives who we hear so often about the statutory responsibility for disposal, which is finite. They are taking capacity from the finite resources that the county is responsible to at least direct us towards. And yes, rather than throwing it in the landfill, the ocean, or WTE, they will have a choice to make whether to join or not. But I don't think any city who says, look, I'm not so sure I want to join because we just don't want to recycle, should assume that they'll always have the opportunity to send it to WTE or the landfill. Because for the rest of us, they're taking capacity. And the Solid Waste Authority has to construct a system, does it? That's number one.
I agree with everything you just said.
I know you do. Number two, and I know you've been very supportive of this, but number two, there are some aspects that will increase, and there'll be other aspects that should be offset. And I think that's a complicated formula for certain cities that just refuse and can't, have decided economically, whatever. And that's going to be part of our job, to figure out where do we create those levers for incentive. But the alternative for those cities that say, nah, we're not in, we're going to continue to just throw it in landfill or WT, they shouldn't assume that's always going to be the case.
Thank you.
Okay, Member Solomon, and then we'll just come around the table.
Briefly, and for the purposes of the governing board presentation. So I really think what we're talking about, Member Mateo Bowen started the conversation. I really think it's the governance oversight, right? And so part of that is also assessing ROI, right? Coming from kind of a corporate America person. And so, you know, this is a business for a very important cause, right? But it's money and it's metrics. So what is our plan? And I think this is important. We don't have to answer it now, but as we present to the governing board, we need to have, you know, is it quarterly metrics that guide and inform what we need to change? And that is really, I think, you know, what does that? So we need to spell out that plan. And I don't know, is that the governing board? Who is that? But I'm not sure that we have that fully baked. So that's my comment. Thank you.
I think
Chair.
it's an excellent point. I think that part of the analysis that'll go forward will be breaking these commodity streams into subparts that we already know are identified. Because as we, again, move the levers on any one of this, from composting to yard waste, we know that in the private sector, the bean counters are saying this works, right? They're reducing their hauling because they've diverted out of the traditional solid waste and they're using it in the circular economy. It's a little easier in a closed system. But that type of analysis that the bean counters are already doing right here in Broward County to implement their own programs is exactly what we need to figure out how to do. How each city analyzes that may be a little challenging, but the overall system has to evaluate how we've preserved finite capacity, met the state goals, our own goals, participated in the circular economy, reduced hauling costs in some cases as we get further out. That has to be part of the analysis. There's no question. And I think it's an excellent point for you to raise with the governing board as well, that there's a commitment to do that. Member Mead, then Member Shuham, and Member Sorensen.
Thank you, Chair. Quickly, first, I just wanted to thank Mr. Deitch and Mr. May for coming to Weston and making a presentation to our commission meeting. It was a great presentation. We thank you for that. I appreciate Ms. Horland and Ms. Ty from the Broward League of Cities also being there and helping us participate. Regarding the program, maybe a little ahead of ourselves, but in the spirit of abundant optimism, have any land sites for drop-off facilities been ID'd? There's like 8 that you've mentioned.
No, but I will say that we did a siting analysis, limited siting analysis, as part of preparing the master plan to identify public land, much to the chagrin of the county. Most of them are county-owned. But no,
the county said they'll give it to us. Don't worry about it. Yeah. And they'll pay for all this too.
But no, that is, if it's premature at this time to start that siting analysis before we actually have an authority that's going to.
Yes, because it's something that's going to take some time.
But yes, that is an activity in phase 1 to proceed with that, and also to develop and issue the solicitations that we started last fall. We put our pens down many months ago, and we will pick that up as well.
Okay, thank you. And the second thing is that food waste has not been identified as being kicked into gear until 2031 to 46. Thinking primarily not of individual homes, but thinking primarily of supermarkets, restaurants, that type of thing, school system that has abundant waste. That would seem to me to be a little low-hanging fruit, and I don't know if that could be kicked forward or not, because that just, again, it seems to be something, it'll take some land, I get that.
Yeah, the approach is to crawl before we walk, before we run. And that's why we want to focus on yard trash, because if you are going, there are lots of ways to beneficially use these materials. But whether it's composting or anaerobic digestion, there are opportunities. But in the short term, the approach is, again, to meet people where they are, encourage home composting, or food waste segregation at public events. We really need to activate and build the biggest tent to show people how easy it is to take individual action for for all of your respective governments to lead in your communities to show how easy it is and lead by example. So it's an incremental approach. But if we have curbside collection of food waste, which we have analyzed, that's a big step, and we want to make sure that we are ready for it and it's planned for, and we're engaging with the governing board appropriately before we activate that kind of program.
Right, but there would be a big difference between curbside collection and, again, between what the major supermarkets and those people can do. That's again, I look at that as low-hanging fruit.
Yep,
So.
and I don't want to steal Mayor Ryan's thunder, but the Florida Panthers at their facility, they are demonstrating, right? They have different sort of control. It's a closed loop. They can dictate what comes in, how it's managed, and what goes out, but they are managing food waste within their facility. So there are lots of examples that will help inform and build momentum for exactly these kinds of initiatives.
Okay. Thank you.
Along that line, I want to thank Plantation, Coral Springs. I know Hollywood has, and others have been providing information so that the members are already initiating their pilot programs to begin. And what I hear reported is that there's wait lists of folks who want to participate in this. So we know there's energy in the community working through the kinks of that. And to the Panthers, I the report yesterday that they're just under 7,000 pounds of composting since they started just in the middle of last year. So the momentum's there. And I think, to Member Mead's point, and it's important for not only the Executive Committee and the Governing Board, but for the public to realize that we have all been working on trying to establish the foundation for that in our own communities. And Member Rydell's, the schools there have demonstrated and finger wagged at us for us. So almost every community has some component of it. I heard Davies got something going on as well. I think what we're seeing and what's going to happen from this is, I think very early on, assuming we get by today, is that we're going to see yet again another subcommittee stood up that's going to focus on these pilot programs, synthesizing and synchronizing the messaging on composting, how it can be done, and getting rid of the myths while addressing the substantial challenges of any ultimate curbside, but starting, as was said, to walk before we run, to make sure that we have the facilities for drop-off and otherwise. So it's an intense program that's already begun in cities.
Let me add one part on that. And the important part is that the infrastructure is now getting established. What we didn't have, because those cities are doing it on a kind of a smaller scale, but on the large scale, the contract that the county did with Waste Management provides for acres and acres of compost up there. They have to do that. That's part of the contract. The reason that there's no more food waste going into Monarch Hill is because it is now going to be going to Okeechobee on a large scale. Having that ready, and that looks to the bigger issues of climate warming and global warming and trying to reduce methane. So those are the bigger issues of how it ties into it.
Okay. Member Shuham, and then Member Thorne, and then we'll close.
Thank you, Chair. Quickly, just on the composting, Filthy Organics was at Water Matters Day, and he could not give away the byproduct fast enough. So I think people are really seeing the benefit of it. My question is this, and it may be the elephant in the room, I don't know, but my comment was exactly that of Senator Geller with respect to, clearly some cities will initially be winners and some may be paying a little more. Has there been an analysis of, knowing what you know about which cities are recycling and which aren't, as to how long it would take, and if at all, the cities that aren't recycling will basically be where they are today because the savings in unit prices due to the number of participants or the number of, the amount of tonnage. Has there been an analysis that, yes, they're going to maybe pay more today, but in time, with the increase in quantity and all of us working collectively together, the unit prices will even out. And also, I just want to point out, a city that doesn't recycle is not paying zero, to your point. They're just paying as a solid waste price. So does that make sense, that question?
Yeah, and it's a terrific question. And that's, so what we've learned, right, as we've gone from the work that we're doing to the one-on-one conversations with the members of the governing board, what we're seeing is a need for a workshop, or it's called different things in different communities, but so that we can have a conversation around that. So we've been working, I'm sure many of you are aware, with the professional staff, with the administrative staff from communities, so that we can address those specific questions. Because the data that we have, if you remember, we were pulling teeth for many, many months to get just basic financial information. Every city, most likely every city, handles the finances differently. So it really is a conversation to be prepared for those workshops so that we can address those questions specifically.
Okay.
But yes,
I mean, I'm just kind of picturing like a fictional city, you know, this is what is happening now. This is what's going to happen in 2027, 2031, that kind of thing. But
and I've been referring to it as the sausage making. We've got 29 collection agreements, and then there are sub-agreements within that for processing and disposal. There's a process of aligning that, and it's going to take some time.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you so much. And I too just want to say thank you to your firm and your sub-consultants and Sam for getting us to today. Thank you.
Okay, Member Sorensen. Then I have Member Bright Cruz's hand up online, and then I'll come to Member Rydell.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for having me here representing City of Fort Lauderdale. So thank you.
Hey.
No, honored to be here. Honored to be here. Thank you. Thank you. Don't set the bar too high for me. Keep it very low, please. So perform much better. Thank you, Vice Chair, for, Mr. Chair, I'll call it a encouraging call that he gave me to make sure we're here today as a city. So happy to be here. Just a couple, maybe one basic question is the executive committee. Is it, and just again, not knowing the process and the history and being a complete rookie, is it possible for the City of Fort Lauderdale to have a seat on the executive committee?
It's never been impossible.
Okay.
But the ILA that we all signed set very clear democratic principles.
Okay.
For the large cities, which Fort Lauderdale qualifies, obviously, there are 5 elected members and an alternate.
Okay.
In that process, and I won't go back over it, but in the process, Fort Lauderdale was an alternate. And an alternate is as important as the members. And we'll go to Member Bright Cruz in a moment, who has 7,783 residents, but I don't know that most people around the table even know that he's an alternate, because he's at every meeting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
He's
sure.
Participating in the subcommittees, and his leadership reaches beyond the borders of his city. He's conducted all sorts of additional assistance to the other members. So for whatever reason, and I don't know why, but for whatever reason, when Fort Lauderdale was an alternate, weren't here.
Okay.
And Miramar, who is another large city, want to be part of this process as well. Mm-hmm. Every large city wants to be part of this. What's important is that, unlike the RRB, every city has a seat at the table. Every city has a voice. Even as we talk here in the executive committee, there are members who have spoken who are not members of the executive committee, who've raised comments. And so what I want to make clear is I am thrilled you're here. Yeah. I think we all feel that. As long as I'm chair, I want Fort Lauderdale to have a seat at the table as a voice. And I will tell you, whether an alternate or otherwise, the executive committee has never taken a vote that didn't have in consideration the voice of an alternate or the voice of someone who was not even a member but was a member of the governing board. I can say that with confidence because I've sat in this chair. We need you. We want you. We generate in this county twice the national average of trash. But that's because we're blessed to be a tourist destination. It is not because we're trash generators, because we are a place, right? We're not sloppier than everybody else, right? And we have a crisis. You know it as well as anybody. We're throwing 20,000 pounds of trash away every minute of every day. While we've been here, just think of what the numbers are this morning. And so we need Fort Lauderdale. And I can't overstate, it would not be possible to overstate how happy I am that you're here, and I think the members are. With respect to the executive committee at the next election, I think Fort Lauderdale should make its voice heard. And whatever that is, but understand that when it came time, there were a lot of members here who were at every meeting, who were at the bi-weekly meetings, who were heavily participating. And maybe a value judgment was made in that democratic process. But it was never intended ever to exclude Fort Lauderdale and not hear its voice. We need you at the executive committee meetings, we need you at the governing board meetings, and we need Fort Lauderdale to TAC meetings. Because while we can do this without certain cities, and we could certainly move forward without Fort Lauderdale, it makes no sense. We're trying to solve this together from the seagrass to the sawgrass, and so we need you.
I appreciate that. Thank you. That sounds great. And so let me just play it back to you just so I make sure I'm understanding, which is going forward, Fort Lauderdale representative, whether it's me or whoever it might be, can attend the executive committee meetings.
They've always had that invitation.
Okay.
Even when they were an alternate and weren't showing up.
Yep.
They could come to whichever ones they want or call in or do whatever.
And can participate in those, ask questions and so forth and so forth. Okay. Yeah. And then to become a formal member of the executive committee, that's through an election, which is, in November of 2026.
Yes.
Okay.
There's going to be a vacancy, so that we'll have to have that vote.
Okay. That's fantastic. Just keep coming. Well, you might want better representation than me, so we'll
No, and that's not a judgment call against anyone else who comes, because we know you are, as a community, as a city, as a major economic player in the region, not just the county, take these issues seriously. I know that.
Well,
we all do.
We do, and I'm honored to be part of this conversation. And then just lastly, just because our Fort Lauderdale City Commission last night asked me if I'd be here today, which I'm honored to be here. I have to leave at 11 a.m., so I just want to share that.
All right, so we'll try to get to the full presentation as soon as possible. But we don't want you to leave. And I'll turn it before I go to Member Rydell to Member Colburn, because Member Colburn also wanted this seat here. And I think it's really important that Miramar has been a powerful voice. Ralph's at not only every one of these meetings, but at every meeting that exists that says anything about solid waste. I'm not even sure he's the same person. I think there's two of them.
Well, I will say, Member Sorensen, I guess we will be competing because there are only about so many positions to be on the executive board. And I do want to say that it does feel that we don't have a voice when we're not on the executive committee. One of the questions that I do have is, how do we change that? I understand that's part of the ILA, but how can we change that makeup? What does it take? Can a member, as myself, City of Miramar, 140,000 residents, or City of Fort Lauderdale, submit a proposal to the governing board that we're on to make a change to the ILA? Is that something that we can do, to the attorney?
Yes, the ILA can be amended. There's a provision.
I'm sorry?
The ILA can be amended at any time it takes a vote.
But the way it is,
let him finish.
the way it is amended, can one board member make that recommendation to the governing board? So I'm speaking specifically of the process, because I don't believe the answer is yes. After speaking with you.
No, at a governing board meeting, a member of the governing board, which is not just the executive committee, the whole governing board, can propose that. In order for it to happen, the governing board would vote to direct me to draft it. It would then have to be approved by 2/3 by the county and cities representing 2/3 of the population. Now, theoretically, it could be added to the facilities amendment that we're about to send out.
Okay.
If the board wants to do that, we could add another seat to the large cities, or we could add, whatever. We're about to go to all the cities, and we're going to need, this facilities amendment needs actually 80% of
So
the
this would be the time to do that.
It could be added if a majority wanted to do that, yes.
Okay.
At the governing board, not at the executive committee, but yes.
On the governing board. Okay.
I welcome any changes that make people feel they're at seat, but I take exception with the idea that non-members of the executive committee, I take exception that non-members of the executive committee feel they don't have a voice. I think this executive committee has been incredibly careful to make sure. I appreciate that you have become so much more engaged, but we never cut out any city. And executive committee meetings, again, there are people who come as alternates who cannot vote because there's nothing to be an alternate to. All the members have shown in that particular area, yet they have a full voice. And member Bright Cruz is the best example of that. When he's here as an alternate with all the members already here, it's as if he's just a member of the governing board. He has no voting right. He can't make a motion. He's a voice. And so I want to make clear, while I welcome any change, it's going to make two cities feel, remember, that means you got to be here, right? Because we have quorum issues at the executive committee at times. And I know you will be. But I want to make it clear that it's not because there's a lack of hearing. And I'll leave it to the individual executive committee members to respond to it. But let's be clear. No matter what the outcome of that is, we need all the voices at the table. But we are holding monthly meetings of the executive committee. Governing board is a challenge sometimes to get a quorum, but we always get there. Executive committee can be a challenge at times. So I welcome the recommendation when we get to the governing board.
Okay, I thank you. This is certainly not personal. That when I say, that we're not valued, we don't have the equal vote. We don't have that voice that I currently have for my residents when it comes to their waste issue. When I sit on when the city is part of this board, so if I don't have that voice and I have a seat at the table, I would want to have a vote along with the seat. So I appreciate being invited to the meeting. I just want to be able to have an equal vote
as all
for my
cities
city.
do. We can't have an executive
amendment
committee.
would be amendment that would facilitate, that would be great. And if we had like 2 minutes in between the meetings that I could speak to the city attorney, I would appreciate that.
Solid waste attorney. He's not a city
solid
attorney.
waste attorney.
But be clear. There's lots of cities that want to be. We cannot have 28 members on the executive committee. We will not get any work done. So I invite and I welcome that. But be clear that we've always had that. And I'll turn it to Member Bright Cruz before Member Rydell as an example of that. Member Bright Cruz.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sorry that I couldn't be there in person, but I appreciate this opportunity and appreciate those kind words. This wasn't what I originally was going to speak on, but just since it's the topic that we're talking about at the moment, I just would like to also add to what you said that I've always felt a full part of that committee, the executive committee, even serving as an alternate. At times when they take the vote, if the other two members from the small members are there, I just keep my mouth shut at the voting time. But you know what? The important thing to me has always been not necessarily being able to vote, because we've had very few votes that were close. It's the opportunity to speak, to voice concerns, to voice proposals, and have the full members be able to make a judgment call on whether those comments are worthy of being moved forward or whether I was off base. And that's the critical thing in being able to have your voice heard. And this executive committee has always been exceptional at hearing any comments and making those judgments. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate the kind comments. What I did want to talk a little bit more about was, and I brought this up before, and I understand there's a hesitation. There's a hesitation to believe what I'm saying, but I believe in it, so I'm going to say it yet again. And that is, I want to talk a little bit about the cost of recycling versus just regular solid waste. We've done that analysis. Waste Management has done, WM has done that analysis for us separately. And the increased cost for the ability to move from non-recycling at all to doing recycling has been less than 5% increase in cost. So I know there's been some understanding that this was going to be a massive cost to go from one to the other. I don't believe that's to be true. And what I'll throw out a recommendation that hopefully will make some sense. I would really like to see our consultants do maybe a quick analysis on that, because I think that's going to be a major concern that a number of cities is going to have. And if we can have them take a look at that and be able to present some sort of a magnitude of cost growth that is going to be associated with those cities that are not doing any recycling now and will be going to recycling, I think that will be very beneficial, because I think it will be a surprisingly low number for those municipalities, and it may be able to help us get over a significant hurdle with those particular cities. And then the last thing I'll say, and then I'll sign off, is, well, I'll still be listening in, but I won't end my comments, is that I just want to say that we, on our own in Southwest Ranches, began our own composting program, partnering with Filthy Organics. It's been a huge success with minimal cost, and so I just say that because I don't think the master plan is an awesome plan that I fully believe in and engaged with, but I don't think it dictates how quickly we can start things on our own that are in the master plan and kind of get ahead of the curve on those things. And so I just would throw that out there. Keep that in mind, that we can always move a little faster as municipalities if the master plan goes forward. But that doesn't restrict us in that way. So thank you, Chair. Appreciate being able to make those comments.
Thank you, Member Brightcrus. Member Rydell, and then we'll close.
It's really just to answer a couple of the questions that were referenced in some capacity in terms of cities that don't do curbside recycling. We don't right now. We stopped about 5-6 years ago in terms of curbside. The city invested due to contamination rates and the cost, and things weren't ultimately getting recycled. We made an economic decision ultimately because it wasn't really being recycled at all. We ended up investing a heavy amount of money into drop-off locations, and it is a wild success in the city. We've done pretty well in that. That being said, to answer your question, whether we extend a current contract or whether we go to bid, we're in that window right now to make a determination. I can't speak to that. Obviously, there's a cone of silence going on in our city, but whatever we move forward, we'll bring back curbside recycling with the understanding it will have a greater cost. So there will be a cost to bring it back in, with the hope that by bringing it back in, we will then, as a city, reap the benefit. I know you recently went back to curbside in Sunrise, and I think there's only 2 other cities that are member cities that don't right now. I know you do. I think it's just Deerfield and Davie. I don't want to throw anyone under the bus, but we all make the decisions we make. But my understanding through listening to some of the TAC meetings is everyone's intent on when their renewals are to come up, understanding there's going to be an increase. So there may not be as much of a benefit as you guys are all going to see, right? But that's at least our intent in Coconut Creek, to bring it back in-house with the understanding that we'll meet all the parameters for whatever amendments come out of here in good faith. So to answer that question, Senator walked in at the wrong time, but I was answering the question about curbside recycling, but you left, and I'm not going to answer it again. But I'll tell you about it after. So,
all right,
that's all I got.
We're at the stage. Ms. Cole, please outline what the process is, both for the master plan and the facilities amendment.
Sure. For the master plan is approved by the governing board. So the executive committee can, if it wants, make a recommendation to the governing board. So if you choose to, and there's no requirement that there be a recommendation, but normally that's the way we've operated. So you could have a motion to recommend the master plan to the governing board, and then when we get to the governing board meeting, the governing board would need to approve it, and the master plan needs to be approved by the county. The county has to vote yes, and cities representing 2/3 of the municipal party's population, which is approximately 1.1 million. So,
and to put in context, the recommendation even by the governing board is not passing the master plan, because that's only the first stop, if you will, on the next stage, right? Because what happens, it has to go to the cities to ultimately. Wait. Let me finish. It's going to each of the cities for their review. And while they only have to approve the facilities agreement, we all understand that if the master plan doesn't work, facilities agreement is not going to get voted. So I want to make clear to all the members what we're doing. If some may say, look, I have some angst, I have some issues, but let's move it along so that at least we can get it to the cities for discussion. It's not the master plan ultimately that will be passed, because that is it's the facilities amendment, but we are all mindful that if the master plan doesn't pass, the facilities amendment isn't going to pass. I mean, that's the reality, correct?
Right, that is correct. And just because a governing board member votes yes today does not mean that the city has to vote yes on the facilities amendment.
Correct.
I mean, this is really, it's being approved by the governing board, but it is just to move it forward.
Okay.
On the facilities amendment, the governing board will vote to recommend it to the cities. That just requires a majority vote. But then the cities, the county, plus cities representing 80% of the population are going to have to approve it. And anyone who doesn't approve it is out. They're basically opting out of the Solid Waste Authority.
Okay.
So the action for the executive committee is first to recommend the master plan, and second to recommend the facilities amendment.
Okay. All right. Do we have a motion on the master plan?
Motion.
Motion by Member Caggiano. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Member Dunn. Any discussion on that motion? Go ahead and call the question by individual roll.
To recommend the master plan to the governing board?
Yes.
Chair Ryan?
Yes.
Vice Chair Furr?
Yes.
Member Shuham?
Yes.
Member Horland? Member Matera Bowen?
Yes.
Member Dunn?
Yes.
Member Rydell?
Yes.
Member Mead?
Yes.
Member Caggiano?
Yes.
Member A.J. Ryan?
Yes.
Member Colborn? Oh, actually,
The alternates won't be voting
Yeah,
except
we don't have any
for
alternates.
Bright Cruz because Newton is not here.
my apologies.
No problem.
Member Bright Cruz?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, facilities amendment. I know we're going to have a proposal, so maybe the first step would be to see if we can move the facilities amendment to the governing board on recommendation, and then on the break you could have, I'm mindful that we're going to lose Member Sorensen at 11, so we'll take a break in between meetings if that works for you, Member Hoper. Okay. Do we have a motion on the facilities amendment?
So moved.
Motion by Member Rydell.
Second.
Second by Member Solomon. Any discussion on that? Go ahead and call the individual roll.
To recommend to the governing board the facilities amendment.
Correct.
Chair Ryan?
Yes.
Vice Chair Furr?
Yes.
Member Shuham?
Yes.
Member Horland? Member Matera Bowen?
Yes.
Member Dunn?
Yes.
Member Rydell?
Yes.
Member Mead?
Yes.
Member Caggiano?
Yes.
Member A.J. Ryan?
Yes.
Member Bright Cruz?
Yes.
Thank you. To the executive committee, thank you for all the hard work, and we know that this still has effort ahead of it. Why don't we go ahead and, there's no new or old business. Can we have a motion to adjourn? And then I say this knowing that it's going to be hard. We'll take a 2-minute break, and then we'll try to whip everybody back. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Motion by Member Shuham, seconded by Member Horland. All in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you. Not yet. All right. All right.
Mayor Ryan, you used to have like 2 minutes.
No, I was just telling him how to get it done. We have 2 issues to look at. He'll tell you about that. Yeah, I can't talk. He's going to tell you what they are. Go.
That's I just didn't know. I don't want to talk through that. I just wanted to know if you knew offhand. Yeah, dude, Phil was like, who's that guy who was sitting with his girlfriend? They were great. And I was like, yeah, man. Yeah, that's like the best in the market. I tried. Coolest character. Best tree guy around them. Like that issue with somebody on your commission. Did he go into that? Oh, yeah.
All right, let's try to get everybody together. Seated 2 minutes already.
Oh, that's great.
What's up, Chair?
What's going on, man? How are you?
Very good, very good.
So, Reeves family. It was awesome. They got up there to do a cross and do a bunch of stuff. Wow.
I was like, wow, you're politically involved now. Good for you, Dan.
He's got the whole family in it.
Really? He brought his whole family? Oh, his brothers and everything? Oh, okay. Okay. I just know Dan. I know him through high school. It's just good to see people my age pay attention to shit like that. You know. No, he's not.
Hey, guys, all right, come on. We got to get going. Let's go. Daniel. We're going to lose Ben Sorensen at 11, so we got to get moving. Let's go. We got to get going. Where's Mr. Cole? Let's go. No, he's... Come on, Member Colburn, we're going to lose Mr. Sorensen. Member Sorensen at 11, so... That's more than 2 minutes. I only took 30 seconds. All right, we got everybody together. We need the vice chair. Where is he at? We have Member Geller here.
Yes, I'm here.
All right, so can we open it? Can you call him out of there?
Get him out.
Tell him to prioritize the breaks in a better way, right? Yep. Are there any members that are in the audience? If so, please come to the table. All right, I'm going to call to order the March 20, 2026 Governing Board meeting. If you would, please call the roll.
Fort Lauderdale. Alternate Ben Sorensen.
Here.
Hollywood, Member Shuham. Here. Miramar, Member Colborn. Here. Coral Springs, Member Mateer Bowen.
Here.
Davie, Member Lewis. Thank you. Plantation, Member Horland. Chair Ryan.
Present.
Vice Chair Fur.
Here.
Deerfield Beach, Member Drosky. Lauderhill, Member Dunn.
Here.
Tamarack, Member Patterson. Weston, Member Mead.
Here.
Margate, Member Caggiano.
Present.
Coconut Creek, Member Rydell.
Here.
Oakland Park, Member Arnst.
Here.
North Lauderdale, Member Borgelin. Parkland, Member Murphy Salamone.
Here.
Cooper City, Member Curran. Lauderdale Lakes, Member Thomas. Dania Beach, Member A.J. Ryan.
Here.
West Park, Member Everyard.
Here.
Wilton Manors, Member Newton. Lighthouse Point, Member Stafford. Southwest Ranches, Member Bright Cruz.
Here.
Lauderdale by the Sea, Member Strauss. Pembroke Park, Member Morissette. Hillsborough Beach, Member Ravanesi. Sea Ranch Lakes, Member Tomlinson. Lazy Lake, Member Nyhuis. Do we have any alternates?
Okay, Mr. Cole, do we have a quorum?
Yes, we do.
All right, please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, public comment. We'll open up for public comment. First, Debbie Green.
Hello? Okay. Well, once again, I just want to thank you all for the tremendous amount of work and hours and the commitment that you've put into this and bringing us to where we are today with this plan and the ILA from where we were 2 years ago. I think it's important that we quiet some of the misrepresentation that this plan and the ILA comes with an increased cost. While it comes with an increased cost, it's actually pretty small. Even if if it goes to $100 per household for everything from where you were yesterday, where you are today, if you're not recycling, I don't even think maybe it goes to $50. But in any case, instead of talking in percentage increases, that it's going to be 100% more, 200% more, and if you're starting at $25 and you go to $50, in the scheme of things, it's very little. It's a small cost to pay to do the right thing for the future of Broward County and for our kids and their kids and their kids and their kids. I also wanted to just thank Broward League of Cities. I didn't realize, they have their support. I urge all of you here to support this master plan and the ILA. And to all of you, know that we are here to support you. And if you need any help in any of your cities, please contact me. We will be there. I wanted to also just, as far as everyone having a voice at these executive committee meetings, I've been attending for the past 2 years. I think I've missed maybe 5 in this time. And I can tell you there is not one meeting, whether they were meeting every 2 weeks for almost a year, to then monthly and then back to 2 weeks. There has not been ever a time where a member or a alternate or even someone on the general board was there that wasn't allowed to share their voice. And those voices have been heard. And as you've seen, I can't be more proud of our mayor, Steve Cruz, and the impact that he's had on this board as an alternate. And just to share, in Southwest Ranches, we had our bar dance last week that raises funds for our college and vocational school scholarship. We had over 100 people, catered event, bar. We did not have not one full trash bag of trash. We composted and we recycled. And I'm telling you, there was not one full trash bag with over 100 people. So I think the education's working. It's getting it out there, and I think people, they start to see what's right in the right direction, and there has been a change in people's mindsets. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephanie Jaffe.
Good morning. My name is Stephanie Jaffe, and I'm a resident of Dania Beach. I'm here today to speak in favor of the Facilities Amendment and the Master Plan. As you know, Broward County is in the midst of a solid waste crisis. We produce 20,000 pounds of waste per minute, which to me is almost incomprehensible. We are rapidly running out of landfill capacity, and as someone who lives near the incinerator, or what is euphemistically called the waste-to-energy plant on 441 and Oaks Road, I don't want another one. When I first began attending ILA meetings several years ago, based on my few prior experiences with local government, I really wasn't expecting much. But the Solid Waste Authority has proven me wrong, really wrong. They've listened to the public, sought input from industry and municipalities, and worked with extraordinary dedication to develop a master plan aimed at both reducing solid waste generation and diverting as much waste as possible from landfills and incinerators. This plan is not yet perfect. As it said, we need to walk before we run, but it charts a clear course towards zero waste, with meaningful improvements projected over the next 40 years. And it proposes to do this at a very minimal cost increase to residents and businesses by prioritizing public education about waste reduction and proper recycling, and by leveraging the excellent recycling and composting infrastructure that already exists in our county. If this plan is not approved, the long-term costs, financial, environmental, and public health, will far exceed any very small near-term increase in fees. Conversely, the cost of inaction is simply too high. I look forward to the governing board's favorable vote and ultimately to approval by the cities that have been part of this plan's development from the beginning. And I just want to reiterate what Mayor Ryan said and Debbie said, that even as a representative of the public, I have felt really heard. So you don't need a vote to feel heard. I am amazed at how everyone has listened to us, how people have answered emails, how the board has requested over and over and over again information from the public, opinions from the public. SCS has done an amazing job. Mr. Deitch has answered my emails. I mean, I'm so impressed. How you found a new commission, just everything. It's just been amazing. And I hope you'll approve the master plan. We absolutely need it. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. All right, we have the meeting minutes. Anyone else from the public who wishes to speak, by the way? We didn't have anyone else signed up. Thank you for your comments. We have the meeting minutes of February 20, 2026. Can I have a motion?
Motion.
Who made the motion? Sorry. Vote. Who made the motion?
I'll second.
Okay. All right. Motion by Member Orange, seconded by Member Patterson. I'll just give it to you. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Thank you. Master plan presentation. We have the subcommittees, but given the limited time, I don't want to lose Member Sorensen. We should move to the discussion and any recommendations on the master plan. I want to begin in recognizing that we do face an absolute crisis. We know the numbers, we know the data. But it's not just the diminishing finite capacity of the landfill and of the WTE plant. It's that we have utterly failed in this county on recycling. The state goal is 75%. Palm Beach County achieved 75% or better, and we're at 30. And in part, it was because of market forces in the mid-2010s, but it's also been because it's taken so long to keep the cities at the table and work on a program that can right the ship. To the members of the executive committee and the governing board, I was going to share the comments about the amount of work, but I think you heard it from the public. I don't need to reiterate. Your work has been recognized. Your leadership is recognized. Failure is not an option. Improvement is always our driving force. Aside from the metrics that some will say about environmental, we've lost control of our economic destiny. As long as we've been fragmented, we've been forced to cities to deal in 5-year contracts, some getting teasers, some deciding to cut services. And along the way, we have never been able to pull together our true economic power. And we know in Broward County, when it comes to regional issues, that the cities, when working together with the county, absolutely can change the course of history. The RRB fell apart for reasons that aren't important here. But in the shadows of that, as we saw it collapse and our ability to manage waste collapse, I want to thank Vice Chair Furr. We sat down over coffee with Mayor Sturmer, and we said, this is simply not sustainable. Not in an environmental way, but in an economic way, and we were failing. Our vision was that we could, for instance, build our own recycling facility, because as government, we don't need to make a profit. We just need to achieve the goals. But in the years it's taken us to even sit at this table to discuss a master plan, Waste Management's built the state-of-the-art facility, and we are grateful for that. It can handle all of the capacity of recycling here in the county, and it can handle the commercial recycling here in the county. We're incredibly fortunate that that exists, because if we had to begin this master plan with what does it take to build a $100 million facility, I doubt we get forward. And as a result, I use that as an example of what we have in the county. We have little land left and little capacity to build our own, but we have infrastructure here. Our only hope is to utilize our economic power through economies of scale and bargaining power to get the best possible contracts for long-term to eliminate variability. If we fail, we probably can do cheaper and short-term, only until we can. Until the industry figures out we have no other options, and then we'll be held over the barrel. We've forced into environmental choices that are unacceptable, and we will lose our economic destiny. We have here today the opportunity to review and hopefully pass through a master plan on recommendation to the cities along with the facilities amendment, all of which is linked together, and we're mindful of that. So I'm going to ask Daniel to go ahead and begin the presentation. I think you can skip over we must do better. I think everyone recognizes that. The funding flow we covered, unless anyone wasn't here for the executive committee, and I think you could go just beyond where the issues are for each of the phases. I don't have the numbered pages. You're probably almost really starting with the 5 myths we can dispel. If you can move forward on that.
Sure. So Elisa, if we could move to slide 12. And again, my name is Daniel Deitch, representing the SES team, chair, vice chair.
Let me just be clear. I'm not intending to cut off any of the comments or questions on any of the other slides, but I think everybody was here for that. If you weren't and have questions, we can do that. Sorry, Daniel.
I wasn't here from the beginning of the executive, so I didn't see the full presentation.
Did you see the financial presentation?
I did not.
Okay. Well, I'll go back and we'll do that.
Okay. So we're going to chair, vice chair, executive director, general counsel. Members of the governing board, Daniel Deitch representing the SES team. I'm joined today by my colleagues, Leo Richter and Vita Quinn and Ashley.
You have to go back to the funding flow.
Yeah. If we could go back to the funding flow, which starts on slide 5. So I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Vita Quinn, who is going to give an overview of the phased funding approach. It is detailed in an appendix, Appendix R, to the master plan. The master plan and the appendices for all of you and for the general public is available on the SWA website. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Beta Quinn.
So there's been some questions as to how the phases will look, how the money actually flows. So the purpose of this slide was to kind of break it down by phase and really make it clear the involvement of the cities and the authority and how that money actually moves. So in phase one, it's sort of continuing the way that the ILA communities have. There's a member contribution based on population. That's the best we could do to approximate waste generation before having a full waste generation study. But moving forward, a more fair way to do it is based on actual tonnage. So the surcharge in phase two is something that's charged at the disposal and processing facilities at the time that the haulers cross over the scales. So in addition to their tipping fee, they're paying a tipping fee surcharge. That is remitted to that disposal facility and set aside and then paid to the authority. In a pass-through manner, the cities will pay that surcharge by virtue of their collections rates, which may likely increase. During phase three, now we have an established authority. It has programs and facilities. We're going to implement a non-ad valorem special assessment. At this point, the surcharge will likely be phased out, and that assessment will be charged to residents directly on the tax bill, the same way that the current assessments for many communities are charged on the tax bill. That will be collected by the tax collector and sent to the authority directly. The way that we're anticipating there will be some savings realized is that with the ILA communities working together to negotiate tipping fees and processing fees, there will be lower tipping and processing fees paid by individual communities, which should offset the cost of that surcharge. We understand that not everybody's agreements come up for renewal at the same time, so this is, even in the financial plan, something that is phased in over a few years as everyone begins to really have control over their waste stream. This just shows what we're anticipating, the cost per ton by year through the beginning of phase three. So again, next year would still be the ILA member city contributions directly to the authority. For the subsequent several years, be done by a surcharge paid at the disposal facilities. And then once that's phased out, bringing in a non-ad valorem assessment to be paid on the tax bill. As far as it relates to an individual household, we're basing that on the assumption and through the waste generation study that the average household in Broward County generates about 1.3 tons of waste per year.
So at that rate, first year on the surcharge, that's $2.60 per household for the entire year. Okay.
Yes. This is in phase three, what it would basically look like for the residents. So to the extent that the communities currently have a solid waste assessment, there would be a line on the tax bill for that assessment that continues to pay for collections. And then there would be the authority assessment would be a separate line item on that tax bill. Again, paid directly to the authority from the tax collector.
And again, the nexus between the master plan and the facilities amendment is what is presented on the slide. It's reflected in Article 24 in the facilities amendment. The maximum service charges, we have broken it out by material type. For many of you, you may be aware of what your current tipping fee is for recycling. Some communities are less, some communities are more, but based on our market analysis, we know that by enacting flow control and securing all of the tons, we can leverage the economies of scale and secure better pricing for recyclables. What is reflected is simply the tipping fee. I know many of you have raised the issue of the AMV, or the cost offset from the sale of the commodities. That is embedded in this, but the tipping fee itself is presented in this chart. For yard trash, and the point was raised at the executive committee meeting, there are lots of options for managing yard trash. We have provided maximum prices both for disposal, which is robbing us of capacity over the long term, or beneficial use. And again, there's lots of pathways to achieve beneficial use of yard trash. We've also broken it out for Class 1 waste, which is household waste, putrescible waste, and Class 3 waste, which is inert waste, construction and demolition debris, yard trash, and bulk waste. So all of these are now, if the master plan is adopted and the facilities amendment are adopted, become binding, and any deviations from these numbers in the wrong direction has to be brought before the governing board for future policy direction. I just want to note that these are not static prices. These will increase each year, as we all know that there are escalations that we face. We have selected one that is specific to the solid waste industry because we think that most closely aligns with the subject that we're discussing. So in the spirit of time, I would ask Elisa to advance to slide 12. And these are some myths that we think have been dispelled with the financial modeling, but there's really some key takeaways. One is we do better working together. The more tons, the better the pricing. There are concerns what happens with other communities that aren't part of the authority. The SWA members will retain a most favored nation advantage over all other parties. The question is this new fee necessary? Well, we are facing a crisis. One of the key guiding principles that was policy direction from the executive committee was control our solid waste management destiny. The master plan and the financial approach help us to manage that solid waste future for the authority, and we see that it is critically important, again, where we can institute a fair approach that's based on tonnage, and for the benefit of the authority over the long term. We also heard concerns that the funding approach is complicated for the cities. The way that it has been structured, it is essentially a pass-through cost that reduces or minimizes, and in some cases eliminates, the administrative burden as we move from phase 1 to 2 and 2 to 3. And lastly, it may be expensive for cities to stay in the authority. We have seen that working together has benefits. Is it the same for every ILA member? Absolutely not. We've talked about this at length. But on the whole, on the balance, the best way to mitigate against the risks and uncertainties of solid waste management in Broward County is to work together as the authority. I was thinking about it during the discussion earlier. In the nearly 2 years that we have been engaged in support of this initiative, the recycling rate has decreased 2 years in a row. We're waiting for new numbers in June, and we'll be happy to report those to you. We hope the trend it will be turned around, but the clock is ticking. We know that working together is the best path forward for the authority. Next slide, please. So I just want to touch on really the 4 elements that help us justify moving together. One is affordability, the economies of scale, fairness, moving away from a population-based funding mechanism to a tonnage base. There is a direct nexus between tonnage generated and payments. Stabilization. We have seen it. You have all felt it over the recent and the long past. You are subject to the vagaries of the marketplace. And yes, you have contracts that help mitigate against that, but all of your contracts are going to come due at some point. And you have hard decisions to make. We want to lock in long-term disposal and processing to provide you with the cost certainty and predictability that's necessary. And lastly, we've touched on it in many different ways. We want to decrease the dependency on combustion and landfilling. And that's within everybody's power. You as elected officials, we've heard it from members of the public, everybody has a role to play. We're not asking any one person to do everything. We are trying to create the conditions that everybody can do something. and working together. We know that we can reduce the amount of waste generated in the first place, maximize the beneficial use of resources, and reduce that reliance on combustion and landfill.
I think everyone's familiar with the project background. Next slides.
Okay.
Why don't you move that
Yeah,
through?
the point has been made.
Yeah.
20,000 pounds
we've seen
of
this
waste generated.
times, and the infrastructure.
Yeah. So I just want to boil it down, and I'm going to invoke Mayor Bright-Cruz, who has shared many times. The path to 75% recycling is a journey. Nobody has a magic wand. We don't have a light switch that we can turn on. It is a process. We believe that the master plan provides those pathways with clarity of how we can get there. You know, it was raised earlier about metrics. Metrics are critically important, and as I mentioned, we're aiming for 75%. Right now we're moving in the wrong direction, and doing the same as we've done in the past isn't going to get us there. The 4 pillars of the master plan, first is behavior change, and we do that by meeting people where they are and a robust education and outreach program. And we're not going to take our foot off the gas, and we're going to adjust to the conditions as we need to make sure that it is an effective program. The economies of scale, leveraging that for optimal pricing and long-term financial security. We've talked about leveraging existing infrastructure. We are blessed to have so much solid waste infrastructure within Broward County. I know that there's been talk, well, what about transfer stations? What about other facilities? We don't need them yet. The financial plan helps us start to build the reserves so that we have the financial strength when it is needed. But in the short to midterm, we know that we can leverage the existing infrastructure for the benefit of the authority. And lastly, harmonizing services. As the chair mentioned, we're a tourist-based economy. We want to make sure that there is clarity, whether you're a homeowner, a resident, a business owner, or a visitor, that the messaging is consistent and clear wherever you are within the county, and consistent with mobility, moving from one community to the next. Next slide, please. So in terms of some of the key benefits, right, we want to maximize recycling services for all solid waste authority members. It's been shared before, approximately 20% of households do not have access to curbside recycling. We see it as critically important to restore that. We have recommended developing new reduction, reuse, and diversion programs. We are laser focused on a heavy portion of the waste stream, construction and demolition debris, commercial recycling, yard waste, and eventually organic waste streams. We want to meet people where they are, not only within your own communities, at your public events, at special events, but have facilities that are available that people can go to in their daily lives to drop off their recyclables and hard-to-recycle materials. Again, we want to harmonize the processing and disposal services to increase efficiency. And lastly, and this is foundational, the education and outreach program to support the behavior change. That's really what success turns on. Everybody doing something.
All right, before we move on to the facilities amendment, I'm mindful of Member Sorensen's time limitation. Do the members want to address the issue of the master plan and any vote to approve or not to recommend? Vice Chair.
Yeah, as much as I want to vote on this right now, my staff and our attorneys are saying there are a few things that we have to bring up. Natasha had sent a whole lot of stuff to you yesterday, Dan. What were the things that were left that you couldn't quite get to yet? Because I know most of them were satisfied.
Yeah.
And so what were my understanding is that there were some things that you weren't clear on, and they weren't clear on.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to get into the weeds, if that's okay.
Well,
but for example,
and I say that because for our lawyers, they're saying to make sure that that we do this right and the numbers are right, that this has to be right. So we've got to get there.
Let me give you an example.
Okay.
Concrete, a component of construction and demolition debris, is often used for lake fill material. So is that beneficial use or is that disposal? And how do we capture a revenue from that, because if it went for disposal, there would be a surcharge applied to it. So it's details like that, and we believe that we can work through how that is handled.
But does it change the, and I'm going to probably ask Nathaniel and Matt to come up to explain why, if this number's not right, because if that number's not right, does it make everything else fall apart?
We don't believe so.
Okay, good. But let me ask Nathaniel and Matt to come up with what their issues are real quick, because I'm trying to get this. I sent it to our staff when I got this on Wednesday. I said, give this a quick full review. They've come back and they sent all this stuff to Daniel. There's things that they're trying to make sure. In general, it's all good, but they also are saying.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
We have limited time.
Sure. So I won't opine on what Daniel just referenced. I'd have to rely on Natasha from our solid waste division to talk about the numbers. What I had found in my very limited review and the small amount of time I had to review the document was I checked it against the requirements that the ILA has for the master plan. In Article 7, there's a list of things that the master plan must contain. Again, I'm not sure that everything's in there, but I know for sure that it doesn't include the hazardous materials diversion plans that the ILA requires. This is a very easy fix. I think you can fix it in 2 weeks. Part of my concern is if it isn't included in the initial master plan and is at no point adopted into it, it becomes very easy for someone to later argue that the formation conditions were not met, and therefore the ILA is no longer in existence, and therefore the authority was not validly formed. So these are not large things that are insurmountable, but we all want to get this right. And so this was the one thing that I found. Again, I fully believe in 2 weeks, this could be fixed. I also know that...
Are you suggesting a delay of 2 weeks on voting on this? Is that the county's position? Because I know you haven't raised this with Jamie before this meeting.
I know I haven't seen the full draft of the master plan before last night.
Why didn't that come up earlier? What is? I'm trying to understand. What is fatal here that you're really concerned about? Because I want to get to it.
I think there.
Alleviate.
That was one. The hazards.
There's two separate issues, right? I can tell you from a legal perspective. Does this meet all of the requirements in the ILA? My concern is that it does not. Separately, our staff has raised a technical question as to whether or not the projected numbers are accurate, and I'm not qualified to speak on that point.
Okay. The other part was, and Natasha, I may need your help on this as well. Because I asked her to look through every single one of these. I said, make sure these numbers are right. And I got this yesterday. I sent it to Daniel. They had a chance to go over this. Sam got it as well. So I think what I'm trying to do is make sure it's right. I don't want to rush this and get it wrong. So that's, Natasha, go ahead.
So my concern initially is the 4.9 million. The 4.9 million represents Broward and Origin waste coming in, but not necessarily how much waste is going out and going across the scales in Broward. And so that would have an impact on how much money we're assuming we're going to receive. If you're using the number 4.9 times 2 to build a reserve and the numbers that we track say differently, we're going to be making a lot less revenue, in my opinion, than if we were to go with the current numbers that are being used.
Daniel?
First, I want to speak to the household hazardous waste. Well, let me take a step back. The master plan was substantially completed and presented to the general public in structured workshops last summer. The master plan was delivered to the executive committee and governing board in August. So the numbers have been there. We were asked to address the financial components in a different way, and you have all received multiple memoranda that sort of refine the analysis because we need a policy direction to land where we are today. The master plan and the financial plan was distributed last weekend, I believe. So not
13.
Yeah. In terms of the tonnage, we know that there is leakage from Broward County. There is material that doesn't cross a scale. There is leakage. That is part of our responsibility, is to identify where those gaps are and develop the systems. Having a plan without appropriate oversight is useless. It's just aspirational, without any substance. There is a responsibility of the authority and of each ILA member to make sure that your contracts are adhered to. And we believe that is the safeguard for the concerns that have been raised.
Let me ask Natasha, what else was on there that needed to be looked at? Because I have you sent me a whole list. Matt, go ahead. And explain to me what you were trying to explain to me a few minutes ago.
Sure.
That if our number's wrong, with the potential legal implications.
The number, I don't believe, has an immediate legal implication, other than the fact that you may have to take various operational changes, right? So you may have to have a surcharge as well as general fund revenue supporting the authority at the same time if you're not bringing in the revenue you need. But that's an operational question. The legal question is more, have we checked all the boxes that the ILA requires us to check in this document? And if we have not, then it means we have not validly formed this authority, and therefore it's open to challenge. That's the concern that I would bring to the body.
Okay, so what is the specific? We have limited time. What's the box that's missing that somehow since August wasn't identifiable?
Right, so Daniel referenced household hazardous waste. That is one component of the way the ILA defines hazardous materials, which includes things like universal waste and batteries. The drop-off centers that are referenced in the master plan are designed to take those in. The way the ILA is set up, it is impermissible to take those in. So how are you dealing with them? How are you diverting them from final disposal? That's a very easy question to fix, but it has not been fixed in the document.
Yeah, that would have been great to know since August. Daniel,
Sure.
what's the response to that?
We've had this discussion many times before. The master plan is the plan, but it's a strategic document. We know that there are details for implementation that will follow. But first we need to have the vision. You know, I'm reflecting back on the Broward workshop where the CEO of the Florida Chamber posed a very challenging question to the audience. What is the unifying vision for Broward County? How are we going to measure success?
So let me stop you there. They're raising hazardous waste, and that somehow the failure to include this in the document or to do it in the master plan, not the facilities amendment, which is what needs to be approved, in the master plan, somehow could undermine the legal existence of the Solid Waste Authority. Love to have heard that before today. Can I understand Jamie, have you had any discussions about this?
No, this is the first time I've heard this issue.
But if I may, it is addressed in two of the white papers that are part of the master plan. What are the future needs? The future needs assessment, that's task 4. And I'm forgetting the task number, but innovative technology. Part of our team are industry experts on these matters, batteries, electronic waste. And I encourage you, if you have not read those documents, read those documents, and I think you'll come back with a different sense of whether it's been addressed in the master plan.
What's the proposal of the county to correct this? And since you've raised it, I have concerns about the legal existence or the ability to challenge its legal existence. What is the proposal? What is the language you think needs to be in there, and what it needed to be identified?
I would hesitate to draft something off the fly. Again, I think this is something with very short amount of time we can get fixed and rectified to make this thing stronger, to make sure it's something we can all be confident in. But this is not something that I can just quickly say off the bat. But again, I don't think it would take many meetings or much time to fix.
Yeah, since August, it would have been the number of meetings we've had on the facilities amendment. Maybe once there could have been something raised on this, or in an executive committee earlier today, or something that could have been done. I'm trying, I'm not a shill for the county. I've been very supportive of the work that's been done and together. But this is another example, like we've been through in the facilities amendment, that was a tortured process. Member Rydell, then Member Colburn.
I mean, I just want to, maybe we'll just streamline this because we're going to end up going around the room and lamenting on short time. The lawyer in me, if I hear challenge, I don't care who brings it up, that's a concern. That can't be a concern in a public forum. That's just my position.
Agreed. Now that it's been
So
laid out
that's-
here as opposed to having been presented.
I got you, Chair. I got you. I sense the frustration, but let's try to be positive and move forward. Also, in all candor, I came back out of the country to be here today. It's spring break week. I was on spring break with my kids. There was new interpretive, we'll call it new interpretive things received this week, right? Interpretive, not new foundational, new interpretive. My staff's here all the time. I ask my staff, I think it's more, in application and activation. I don't think it's substantive. The only thing that troubles me in that is think. Would I like a little more time to digest this? Yes, that concerns me as well. And candidly, I don't know what Member Colburn's going to say, but if there's going to be some sort of potential motion that to piggyback on some sort of modification on what potentially quorum could be and members could be, I'll just say this to Sam. I think we all would need distributed the attendance, the percentages of quorum, because if we're making quorum by one, it presents an issue. If we're adding potentially 3 people there, however we're adding. So, while Mike, I understand your, Mr. Chair, I apologize, the frustration on this issue, I want to ask Sam and Jamie a very succinct question, because maybe it streamlines the discussions, frustrations. We already have a docketed meeting on April 17th, governing an executive.
We can't do that. We just scratch that. We don't have the play in the joints, because that means then we only have 120 days. That puts us outside of August. We don't have the time. So if we're going to have a meeting, it's going to have to be next week. That's the reality, and it needs to be solved. We built in a little bit of play in the joints, but we cannot wait essentially 4 weeks.
So I'm asking. So I want it to be clear to me, because I understand that. I don't think any city's putting this on their agenda in April. But Jamie, I just want to.
Yeah, we are.
You're voting on it? Okay.
We did it because we wanted to have this conversation today, and my staff reviewed it. They're giving me pushback, so there are issues.
So the question is succinct, because it may streamline other members' issues. Mr. Cole, explain to me why we cannot table these 2 items until April 17th.
Legally, we can. The
Okay.
issue here really is the summer breaks for city commissions. Once we send this out, the timeline is to distribute this on Monday, and then there's 120 days for city.
I'm with you on that.
If we delay that for 2 or 3 weeks, the end of that ends up being the second half of July, early August, where cities are away. So it's just going to make it much harder to get it approved. So the thought was, the timing was set that way. Now, if we do it next week, we're still within, it's not as much of a problem. But if we delayed this an entire month, now you're talking about the summer breaks, and you're taking that 120 days and basically making
I mean, I respect that, and I appreciate your response, but I don't think any city's taking summer break in, May, really in June. I think summer breaks are traditionally in July. That's just in my city. I hear you, but the only thing I'm hearing county wants 2 weeks. I know there's concerns, there's hands raised, and as opposed to all jumping on the bandwagon when we're at 15 minutes at a time, I get it. There's a significant amount of members of the governing board in this room that's representing, I would say, 70% of our members. That if it's a priority of saying, hey, we're going to kick the can a month, I don't want to do that. And I know Mike's is looking at me with big eyes.
Because it's not just a meeting.
Because
most cities are trying to do a workshop and then a meeting.
I'm with you, but if we roll this a week,
then everybody's
people may not get the answers they want.
I understand. Here's what the point. If the will of the body is to push this a month, you all are going to have to be ready. You're going to have to be ready to.
And that's the point I was getting at. If I was able to finish my comments, Chair.
I understand.
You didn't. You cut me off. Let me finish. That's what I'm getting at.
Let's get to that so we can get it.
Then to get to it is the 70% of people in this room are firmly committed to going and saying, we are going to schedule this now. That's what we need to give everybody the time so they're comfortable. That's what I would be prepared to make a motion of. And I'm deferring to the body, and I yield my time, Mr. Chair.
Member Shuham, then Member Coburn.
So my question for the county and for SWA Council is about an hour ago we had a conversation that this is a living document and there are certain types of items that are very difficult and certain that are very simple that can be addressed by the executive committee. So my question is, based on what you've just heard, it sounded to me like these are in the executive committee type issues. Is that correct?
Yes, this is something that could be through an amendment to the master plan. If we needed to add something, it could be amended.
Okay. My suggestion, that's all I wanted to know. We are not doing anything today but making a recommendation, correct? To our cities to accept this master plan and the facilities amendment, right? We're adopting the master plan and then making a recommendation to accept the facilities amendment. But the master plan can be amended by our executive board committee in a majority. Is that correct?
Right, by the governing board.
I'm sorry, by the governing board. So my suggestion would be that, and I'm happy to make the motion, that we make a motion to approve the master plan subject to a subsequent discussion over these 2 or 3 issues that are within the control of the governing board with respect to the master plan, so that cities, just as you said, can now move forward and schedule their commission meetings because there is technically an approved master plan, which all of us in this room will know are going to have minor amendments, maybe, we don't know, based on the concerns raised today by the county. But based on your conversation, the conversation earlier, these are things that don't require, these are the easy fixes, is the point.
Could we continue the discussion? I'm sorry,
Yes.
before motion?
Before any motion, because I think it's fair, hang on, it's fair that others want to weigh in on this. And the real issue is not to force fit this. And the issue's been raised. We're going to do this in a deliberate way, leaving aside the facilities amendment and quorum, there's complicated issues. But if this, and I'm not telling you to withdraw the motion, I'm just saying if the body says, look, we're going to push this because there have been additional issues raised, I'll leave aside just for a second how we got to this point and why it wasn't raised earlier this morning or why it wasn't raised last week or in September or October or November or December, but that's where we're on. So the real question, I think, because we want to cut to the chase on this, is and everybody can go into it, is it the will of the body to, A, delay the vote here today, and then B, if so, for how long? I think that's fundamentally the question we're facing. Member Colburn.
Thank you. First of all, I just want to say thank you to everybody, especially the executive committee and anyone else who's been coming to all these meetings over the last 2 years for the tremendous job that you have done to get us this far. I do want to make sure I do say that. There are concerns, and I still have discussions that need to happen with my staff and my commission before I vote on this master plan. So I would certainly appreciate, and I understand your frustration hearing this today, but I would certainly appreciate us moving this to April 17th. That will give my city enough time to go over the master plan. Yes, the master plan was made public in August, and there have been several changes. The financial modeling has changed consistently, and it's only recently that we have, okay, this is what we're going with. And I think it is only fair, it is only respectful for my staff and for my city commission for them to be able to know what this has. This is a major, solid waste authority is major, and it's a big deal for my city. And I don't want to leave out my colleagues without understanding what is it that we're doing at this level. Because just like I represent my constituents, so do they. And I want to make sure that we're all on the same page. So with that, I'm at the point where I do agree to the April 17th, and if we can bring back a resolution, I guess we'll have to vote, but my recommendation for the ILA to include an additional position for the large cities and an additional position at large that could be from any of the other cities. And that's what I discussed with the attorney.
Member Patterson.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, everyone. I think that I kind of tend to come to these meetings and I'm quite quiet because I recognize that it's important to kind of listen. I'm not one of the members that have been on this board for any major amount of time. And so this is, no minor charge. I think that we've been charged with. Echoing Member Colburn, I want to thank Member Bright Cruz. He came to my city last week or 2 weeks ago or so and did a workshop for my commission and, took the time to just kind of go through the process and what we've been doing here and give them an opportunity to ask questions and what have you. Thank you, Member Furr, for having the county staff review what's before us today. And I appreciate you, Mr. Chair, and everyone here. I think the dialogue is very healthy. It's important to see all sides of this thing. All of us are really in a situation as, elected people it's a tough scale to balance right now. Obviously, we have this decision to make, among other things that I think all of us are considering as it pertains to our constituency. And I too have a number of questions specifically about what was presented in the financial model today, but I'm not even going to ask those questions because given what we just heard, I don't even know that there is any, it's not even necessary at this point. I think that, there is validity to each, to Member Shuham's proposal, if it is a living document, perhaps, and I would, to defer to the attorney on how do we deal with this. I understand, the position of Member Rydell and Colburn as well. If cities are able to maybe even set a special meeting, but I don't think that this is something that we just breeze over. I think it is important that we spend the time ironing out. And I would ask you, Member Furr, given that your staff, you made reference several times to a list of things. I heard one thing, which obviously I understand presents some legal challenges, but I'd be interested to know what are those other things and should we be considering that, A, and then B, from your position, given you are the vice chair of this board and you've been here from, I assume, day one, what was going to be your position on this item today? Deferring it until when?
So just before we get there, just to kind of get to the point here, we have an executive committee on March 30th.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we're already set for that. The question is, will the governing board members agree to a governing board meeting on March 30th?
March 30th.
30th. I said 30th. Yeah. Okay, perfect. Okay, right. 9 p.m. Of course, 9 a.m. It's on the agenda. The future meetings are all on the agenda. Presumably, members of the executive committee had that on their calendar. The question is the governing board.
Work for me.
It would not, or would?
That would not work for me.
All right, we have this room available on April 6th. How does that fit for the executive committee and the governing board? Vice Chair Furr cannot be here on that date. All right, so the only option, yeah, no, but you've been here all along, so you've raised this.
Does it have to be a Monday?
It's but it's a combination of when this room's available.
Commissioner Furr, I have a doctor's appointment, but I'd move it if I have to.
April 17th is the next date that is set for the executive committee and the governing board.
Mayor,
yes.
If I can just add one other thought. The 120-day period is for the facilities amendment. The key dates here are the facilities amendment. The master plan is just approved by the governing board. Technically, the governing board just has to approve a master plan by the whole end of the 120 days. The idea was to have the facilities amendment and give the cities the master plan with the facilities amendment, but we could give it to them subject, like Member Shuren said, the diversion plan, what the ILA says, just to get what their issue is it says the master plan must provide a diversion plan for any hazardous materials that have impermissibly entered the system. I guess there's an issue as to whether within the 1,600 pages of backup there is a diversion plan. This will be very easily fixed.
Mr. Chair, our staff does not have any objection to approving the facilities, only the master plan today.
Right.
So we're okay with approving the facilities today.
Right. You could approve a facilities amendment today, approve the master plan, and then you can always amend it to add this, sometime in the next 120, 150 days. You got plenty of time to do that. The cities would just need to be advised that, that minor change is going to be made.
Right, and it wouldn't be expected, right, and they wouldn't be expected to move on the facilities amendment until there's a master plan. I mean, that's the reality. Nobody's at the commission level.
But we can move on it today.
I mean,
Member Coburn.
Right. I would be most comfortable, since there's really not a significant rush to approve the master plan today, to just defer it to our next meeting on the 17th in terms of just the master plan. It doesn't mean that we can't move forward with the ILA. And the master plan, as we've been making adjustments so far, it's out there. That's a document that we can continue to, to use that one in terms of staff, knowing something is coming. But I wouldn't want to vote on it knowing we have something, changes to it, and I know it gives my city, some other cities, a few more weeks to look at it before I vote on it.
Yes, Member Terrebonne.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I second the recommendation of Member Shuhan. I also would love to circulate with my colleagues the memo my staff just shared with me in alignment with what the county recommended. There are some discrepancies with the master plan in alignment to what staff had just presented. So I would like for my colleagues here to see what my city is recommending to make sure that we are clear on what we are taking on. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I would suggest that both what your staff has raised and what Member Furr's staff has raised gets circulated to all the members so that we all know what these issues are and can better understand how many of them were not, could have been addressed easily and which ones are necessary for absolute amendment. Member Rydell and Member Dunn.
Just clarification, Member Shuham, is Member Terrebonne, you're supporting voting on it today with essentially an asterisk?
Correct.
Okay, so I'm not supportive of that. I think we can still circulate a majority of the document saying it's going to be subject to change. And my biggest concern, and I'm just going to be very clear, as soon as I have a lawyer stand up there saying there's a challenge issue that is not put that in the public realm, I can't in good faith recommend passing something today with that asterisk, understanding that if there's activation or policy issues or some of the other things, I would be fine with. That to me, I can't do that. So I'm a fan of putting this down to April 17th with the understanding that there has to be a stress to all governing board members to prioritize this or set it knowing it's coming down the pipe. So I would be making a competing motion depending on yours to table the items till the 17th.
Point of clarification, it is the ILA, to move forward with the ILA, bring it facilities agreement with the caveat of us voting for the master plan on the 17th. That is what was presented, right?
That was not, but I'm fine with that.
Okay.
So you,
vote on the facilities
Can I see
amendment.
clarification on Member Shuham's motion, please?
So I
think
didn't
it's
make a
going to get
motion.
changed.
And Member Mateo Bowen is a different concept, which I can live with. My concept was we vote on the master plan and approve it with an asterisk that these corrections will be made at the next meeting of the general board. I think what you're saying is we vote on the facilities amendment with the asterisk that the master plan will be voted on at a subsequent meeting, which is what you're saying as well.
I'm prepared to make a motion to table the master plan item until April 17th.
Second.
Hang on. Okay, there's a motion, but before we go forward, because there might be competing motions, let's get this sorted. We'll finish discussion and then come back to it. Member Dunn.
Yeah, I just kind of want to, attorney, get some clarity on the timeline. So the facilities amendment, sir, is what the cities really need to vote on in order to pass. So if we vote on the facilities amendment today, there's nothing that precludes the timeline that we're working on in my city, which is a presentation to the commission on Monday at the workshop, and then the possibility of a vote in April, which potentially would happen before the April 17th meeting.
Yes, you could do that. The only caveat to that is you would be once you vote for the facilities amendment at your city, you're committed. And if the master plan is then changed in a way you don't like, this is a very
So then let me
minor.
let me ask you another clarifying question. So if we were to then move the vote on my commission to the first meeting in May, we're still on track.
Yes, you'd
All
still
right.
go track.
Thank you.
The problem here with timing is really the end of the period, not the beginning of the period.
Okay,
It's just whether or not it's going to end in the end of July or August. I mean, this is a extremely minor technical amendment that's going to have to be made to the master plan that Daniel can probably do in 5 minutes. I mean, this is a very minor issue, this hazardous material issue, this diversion.
Okay. Member Geller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think there's some confusion here. I came in here today not having any idea that there was a problem from the county on the master plan. My understanding, and I'd like to ask Mr. Putzberg to come forward, is that they just received this a day or two ago. When did you receive this? The master plan, the final version.
The master plan document itself has been circulated for some time. The financial plan is dated, the most recent financial plan is dated March 13th. And the financial concerns associated with that staff has raised as questions is just been in the last few days because I believe, again, the document was just distributed.
In addition to that, the other arguments that have been raised, for example, the diversion, I thought that what y'all told me was that it's a 1,600-page document that you received the final version in the last couple of days, and that they've used one example of the diversion, but that there may be other things you simply haven't had the opportunity to go through.
I don't know whether anybody has had, again, Senator Geller, the master plan document is about 30 pages, and there's 1,293 pages of additional appendices, some of which have changed over time. I know that we've been reviewing it since we were alerted to the final version and saw that it was on the agenda for today. So we've been looking at that. Solid Waste staff has also been looking at that for the last couple of days, has raised certain questions. And
have you finished your analysis yet?
I certainly would not say that I've finished a 1,300-page review in the last 48 hours. But again, to what Mr. Cole also said is that the 120 days applies only to the facilities amendment. The master plan being voted on by the governing board doesn't need to travel. One last other comment to Commissioner Schuham's original motion. If the governing board passes the master plan today, asterisk or no asterisk, the changes that would have to be made potentially, and it's not just dealing with the hazardous waste diversion, but staff has raised questions in terms of the numbers. I believe that some of the city staff have also raised questions in terms of the numbers and costs. The manner by which the master plan is amended based on those financials, if that happens to be something that needs to be changed, is not just a simple one vote. It is 2/3 majority. Some of them require 2 meetings because it's dealing with costs. Once the master plan is adopted, it's a master plan. And if it has conflicts with the ILA, then you have the legal issues. And if there are monetary issues that may exist in the financial plan that just got distributed within the last few days, you have to go through that whole process of amendment, which becomes
Well, that was my question.
burdensome.
Yeah,
Okay.
leaving
And
aside,
so-
just to be clear, 1,300 pages was not dropped on anybody in the
Absolute-
last week. Do not
Mayor,
put that in the
I
record.
am, Mayor, I am absolutely not saying that 1,300
That's right, because
pages.
those are, let me finish, those are the task reports that have been discussed, not just since August, over and over. They've been trickled out with recommendations and changes and questions and have happened.
Yes, absolutely.
The financial, I understand your point. The point's raised. So where are we at?
So that was my
Oh, sorry,
question.
Member
And
Geller, sorry, hang on. Member
Yeah,
Geller.
I'm sorry.
Okay, so Mr. Mayor, I believe everybody in this room wants the master plan to be approved. I think you're a lawyer, I'm a lawyer. Our lawyers, county lawyers, have told Commissioner Furr and myself that they think that they simply haven't had time to review, that they've found some issues that they disagree with and they're recommending. I don't want us to do anything that would prevent us from getting this accomplished, but if postponing it 2 weeks or a month gets it done correctly, I have to follow our lawyers' recommendations as Vice Mayor Furr does.
No question. And what I don't want to do is I do not want to set up a vote just to move something forward that has no votes in it.
Right.
We were unanimous at the executive committee, and none of that stuff was raised. Not at all. So everybody's already on record recommending this to the governing board, and not once was raised that there may be an underlying legal infirmity. So we're here. I think we're scheduled for the 17th, and the members can make their motions. But there's obviously an interest in addressing membership. That's going to be through the facilities, and whether it's one or two, because it's not going to be so easy to say one. We're back to an election problem. Then we have significant quorum issues. And I want to be clear, on the governing board, we've always met quorum. Executive committee, we have started a large number of meetings without quorum. So folks want beyond, they're going to have to come when it's scheduled, or you're going to have to send an alternate. We cannot take a chance of tying up the executive committee in the most important part of this, which is implementation. That's just to lay it out. So there's going to be a proposal on that. The executive committee will meet on March 30th. We're meeting. We'll get an update from legal, the proposals for facility amendment changes, and anything in the master plan that has raised concern will be circulated. And we can begin to address that, okay, including from Coral Springs. And then at that point, my suggestion to the body is, because I don't think it's healthy to have a no vote on any aspect of this, is that we do this on the 17th. In the meantime, everybody's got, if you guys want workshops, got to get it scheduled. I looked at the chart. There's a lot of cities who haven't responded that they want to have this or when they're scheduling it. We need to do that so that we can get out and have staff. It's a very complicated issue. Sometimes, 2 meetings on the same night, trying to get people out. That has to be done. I have to have by March 30th. Everybody wants a workshop and wants Daniel or the team there. We need to have it. If you're going to have a vote and you want Daniel or the team there, you need to have it. This can no longer be pushed down the road, and too many cities have pushed it down the road. So now we know where we're going to be. What is the Member Matera Ball?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've also volunteered to go to various municipalities to speak on behalf of the master plan and the facilities agreement. My motion was to vote on the facility agreement today.
Okay, so let's have a discussion. The challenge with that is, if it's voted on today, the proposal from Miramar to add membership, whether it's one or two, Fort Lauderdale wants to be on as well, that has to be part of the facilities amendment. So I want to be mindful that that's what the motion is. And I don't want a no vote on the facilities amendment by somebody who says, hey, I haven't had a voice. So are you persisting in the motion? There's a bunch. We've kind of stepped back. We're gonna sort it. We're not gonna force anything through on it. But I want to be mindful that in order, so that everybody understands, the proposal in deference to Miramar has to be part of the facilities amendment. If we vote on the facilities amendment, amending that later is a problem. So go ahead, because the clock starts. Because then we have to notify the cities pursuant to the ILA. Once the facilities amendment's approved, it gets notified. The 120 days starts, and it's only going to make us look like we have issues.
So
if I can just add, the 120 days from April 17th, I think, ends up on a weekend, and you end up not making. I mean, we have a deadline, complete deadline of August 15th or 16th. I don't know if the cities are going to get their full 120 days if you wait till the 17th.
Well, it's in the ILA.
The ILA requires them to have 120 days. So I mean, technically, I mean, if
Technically, that's a violation.
if we're on the 17th and at the end of that night we send it to cities that we might be making it by one day or something, this is cutting it really close. I mean,
Right.
if we can do this in 2 weeks, it would be much better than waiting 4 weeks.
So to the point, in lay terms, cities are entitled to 120 days. A city could say, we weren't given 120 days in violation of the ILA. Which is why it would be helpful.
2 weeks would be much better, or sometime next week or the following week would be much better than waiting till the end.
My city is ready to vote on the facilities agreement next week. And so my staff is here and I need to give them direction after this meeting. So are we holding off on the facilities agreement? Because I need to pull it off of our agenda because we need to give public notice.
Okay, so the only issue on the facilities amendment that's been raised is this change in membership.
And that is where I want to hear from Member Colburn on the clarification. You want to be included in the financial amendment agreement.
No, facilities amendment.
A facilities amendment, and the issue is they weren't before?
No, they want to be included. Right now we have 5 from the large cities
Okay.
membership that were democratically voted in October of 23 and then again.
Oh, yes.
So now they want to expand. There's a suggestion to expand the 5 to either 6 or 7 of the large cities, which is fine. Everybody can do that. It affects quorum, so everybody has to understand that. There may be medium cities that say the same thing, and there may be small cities that say the same thing, in which case we're growing the executive committee. That we have to all be mindful. It makes it a challenge to get quorum. So that the facilities amendment, with in deference to one of our members, has been asked to be amended. I know you have a motion and there's a second. We're having a discussion. Member Colburn.
In order to make any changes to the ILA, it has to go to all of the cities. So this is an opportunity, as stated by the attorney, for us to make a change to the ILA, since we do have an amendment that's going to all the cities. What I am proposing is to increase the number of large cities by 1, and also to increase one other that could either be large, medium, or small city. So it increases the size of the executive committee by 2. And that would be added to the amendment that's going forward.
Large seat.
An additional at-large
So
seat.
what happens if Miramar and Fort Lauderdale, who've indicated and through the democratic process, don't get on? And I'm not saying it's about you.
That's understood. That's understood. I mean, it's still there is still a process. It does not guarantee that either one of us will go on. You're absolutely right. Do we want to add all large cities to it? You can make that motion. I don't.
As somebody who's had to sit here and try to get quorum and call and find out who's showing up and who's not, and then us only being able to do, hey, let's talk about some presentations because we don't have a quorum. No, I don't. I personally
I can't speak for other people. Well, clearly, if you have people on the committee and they are not coming, you definitely want to have people on your committee who truly are interested. Those would be the ones that you want to vote to have on your committee.
Right.
But if you don't have a quorum, and you're the individuals who are voting for these people to come, I don't understand that either. But I would suggest, I would certainly let it be known that I would be interested, my city would be interested in being on it, and Fort Lauderdale has indicated the same. You do have a process. The suggestion is to increase it, which will allow that process, that democratic process, to take place.
Well, the democratic process did take place, but the issue.
You have additional. You can always go through the process. You can vote for Fort Lauderdale or Miramar if you want, or you don't have to. But that's the process I'm referring to. I realize I can't change that. I'm just asking for increase.
Microphone. Sorry.
Yeah.
there was a process in the beginning. Large cities had an opportunity to vote for large cities to be on the board. Medium cities had an opportunity to vote for medium cities on the board. Small cities had an opportunity to vote for small cities. There was a process.
That is
Maybe
the process.
your city didn't advocate well enough for itself. Maybe your city didn't show up. But there was a process that was democratic. You keep saying democratic process. Well, guess what? The democratic process was there, and the people who were there voted democratically. I don't know if your city was there or not there, or if you advocated for yourself or said, well, let somebody else do it. But there was a democratic process.
I'm not challenging the process in any way. My suggestion is to increase the number of the large cities by one. I mean, if that's something that has to be done by a motion, it can be voted up or down. But that can be discussed further if anybody does not want it increased, or if they do want it increased. But I do understand that even once that number has increased, it has to go through the process just like it went through before in order to vote for that person. And there's no guarantee, as you said, it's going to be Miramar or Fort Lauderdale. It can be whoever you want it to be, whether or not they come to your meetings.
Excuse me, I just saw something else that I have to point out. Actually, to amend the agreement as to certain sections, we actually need 100% of the cities. One of those is actually executive committee membership. So we're not going to be able to do it. I mean, if it's part of facilities amendment, it's going to need 100% approval. So it probably will have to be a standalone amendment, separate from the facilities amendment, and it's going to have 100% approval. Because we did have that.
Right. So
we
to put,
added that.
to put
So
that
it's kind
in,
of a separate issue.
To put that in context, if a city of any size says, I don't agree with that provision, the whole system falls apart.
Yes.
So that's the knife's edge we're walking right now, which is fine. We can take that risk. Are you suggesting that there could be a separate proposed amendment to the ILA that would not affect the facilities amendment, that could be voted on by all the cities by whatever date or time, which could, all it needs is one participating city to say no, and it remains as it is?
Yes, and that could either be done at the same time, it could be done like we could present two amendments at the same time, or it could just be done as a separate amendment at a different time. But it will require 100% approval because we do have that provision in here.
All right, so let me ask this then. Given that, would you be okay with voting on the facilities amendment as it is today? Understanding we're going to come back and there's going to be a discussion amongst the governing board, right, on amending the ILA, not the facilities amendment, amending the ILA to address membership on the executive committee that would go as a standalone. Could go parallel, could be voted on whenever. So that if any small city, I'm not saying small, I'm not saying they would do it, but some city who doesn't really have doesn't have a direct, but might be concerned for other reasons why that's happening, if they vote no, at least the facilities amendment and this entire SLBA doesn't collapse.
Yes, if you include changing from the 100% to 80%.
Well, now we're changing the ILA. We're changing the whole ILA.
You're not changing the ILA. You're doing the same thing. It's just one small change to what you are currently submitting on the facilities amendment.
You would need 100% to agree to that. You can't. It doesn't get you around it.
Got it.
Right. This is a provision of an existing agreement that we all signed and voted on, and it requires 100%. Are you okay with a freestanding amendment to the ILA under your proposal, which, by the way, may include Fort Lauderdale MLC 2, there was a suggestion, maybe an at-large, whatever the case may be? We absolutely can address that.
So if I could just take this back to where we were before, where this started, which is, in terms of the large cities, in terms of, I can just speak for Miramar, in terms of my city. Currently, we have full control over our waste services. We provide recycling and everything. We don't have a voice on the executive committee where major decisions are made. And when the question was asked, how do we change that? We got, well, you can do this, you can do that. But then when we went around in circles and circles, it turned around, you need 100%, which is clearly not likely. So it's almost impossible for us to get any changes to the ILA. If I, as a member of the of the governing board, want to recommend any changes that are meaningful, it's really, you really can't, okay, in any real way. And that's one of the issues that I have. That's one of the issues that I will be discussing with my city in terms of being on this board. Now, adding it was a small solution, even though it doesn't guarantee that we will be on there, but it was something. But even that is almost impossible to happen.
Listen, this ILA was wrestled over for a year. Every city had input on it. We wrestled with the county. There were sharp elbows, and there was an intention set to make sure there were certain provisions that were not easy to change. Because that could have been easily changed to only 3 large cities, right? This is what everyone agreed to. This is the process we all agreed to. And so all that we got here is not as important as there's a plan and a proposal that gives you a chance at what you're suggesting. I'm just asking, is that something you want to pursue?
I would like to pursue it. If we cannot pursue it along with this, there's really not a priority for us to have a discussion on it right now, in my opinion. It can be something pursued any other time. I think the focus here would be the ILA and the master plan. So I would not, I would not pursue that at this time. If any changes that we can make,
I see. I understand.
As we go through now, if we can put it on the ILA, yes. But I'm not trying to do it outside of that at this time.
Right, and I'm not suggesting you do it. I mean, we can include it in the facilities amendment. The only challenge is one city could just say no to that provision for whatever reason. I don't know why. And then the whole system falls apart. That's not really, I'm risk averse that way. So I'm leaving it to you as the member as to how you would like to proceed.
If we can submit it as a separate resolution along with the others, there'd be 2 separate items to be voted on. I would pursue that.
Okay, here's what I would suggest in that, because we don't want to craft it on the fly here. We have an executive committee meeting on the 30th. Between now and then, your staff can also, and legal can look at the ILA, validate and verify that yes, it requires 100%. Figure out what provisions it would be. Think through how you want to present that. And we can certainly take that up on March 30th and present it on April 17th as a standalone potential ILA amendment, if that's what you want.
Yes.
Okay. There's another issue with other cities. I apologize for interjecting. This is your issue. If we try to do that, there's other cities taking it up in the interim. So it won't.
No. Separate.
No. I understand that. So if Jamie, correct me here. If this body agrees to move forward the facilities amendment, we agree with Member Colburn to put an addendum on. So it's 2. Is that not what I'm hearing?
No, it's not an addendum. It's a standalone.
It's a standalone item. So 2 items. So the road show is going to include.
Anytime.
The road show is going to include 2 items.
Yes.
But hold on, let me get there, because what I've heard on this body today is people intend to vote on that in April. So they're not there. And if it's 100%, you may be shooting yourself in the foot if one commission takes it. That's my point. What I'm hearing. If I'm incorrect, please correct me.
Let's assume there's no facilities amendment, and we are a year ago, and a member comes forward and says, "I want to amend how the membership of the executive committee." There's nothing else being voted on. We could have done that. We could have said, "Okay, we're going to recommend that." Goes out. We're going to need 100%, and they go vote on it. Go put it on the agenda. Yes, no, whatever. It's completely independent. It has its own course of time, and it's not tied to the facilities amendment one way or another. Now, well, Doesn't have to. It can go anytime.
Okay.
Right. But you want to move forward with it. So I mean, yeah, I mean, that's the point. I'm not just answering technically, legally. Right. But that has to be, drafted and it has to be considered, and everyone has to think through the policy issues on it. But it's independent of the facilities amendment as structured right now. That's the proposal.
Chair, I don't know what everyone else came here for. I came here to vote on the master plan and the facilities amendment, and this is getting time sensitive right now. I think we're going to go ahead and either up or down, or just move forward. We're going back and forth, half an hour we're going back and forth in this ILA, and I'll tell you what, right now, I'm not inclined to amend the ILA. So you're going to have to really talk me into that. So if you got one vote that's not going to do it, then what you're talking here is you're making a mountain out of a molehill. So I'd just like to get forward and get these votes done so we can do something today.
All right. So I think what we're going to probably hear is a motion to table consideration of the master plan today to address the issues. The motion right now was the facilities amendment? Yes. Okay. The motion on the table right now is to approve the facilities amendment as it is. Is that what I understood? With a second from Member Mateo Bone.
Can I be just
okay, Member.
Can I be just clear on what we're voting on with the amendment? Is it just we're just voting to send it to the cities?
Right. That's it.
What would that motion read like, City Attorney Jamie?
Okay.
I mean, Connie.
As to the facilities amendment, the governing board will be voting to recommend the facilities amendment to the cities. That's what you'll be doing. The 120-day time period doesn't start until it's actually delivered to the cities for approval. I don't know if we want to deliver it to the cities for approval until we have the master plan approved. That's something we can discuss, because once the master plan is approved by the governing board, that's a separate action. I know this is kind of weird the way it was set up, because we have the facilities amendment and we have the master plan. The facilities amendment is really the legal operative document, and each city is going to choose whether to approve it or not. The master plan does not go to the cities. So technically, once you approve the facilities amendment, you could deliver the facilities amendment to the cities, and the 120 days period starts. The problem is the cities are going to want to see the master plan beforehand, and so if it hasn't been approved by the governing board, that's kind of contrary to what we always intended, which was that the two would go hand in hand. So you can vote to approve the facilities amendment, not send it to the cities until the master plan is approved by the governing board. That would probably make the most sense.
Okay.
Mr. Chair? Over here?
Yes, of course.
Yes. I'm Commissioner Eviard from the city of West Park, and I'm grateful to be here to represent my city. And before we move on, I want to say is that there are certain things that I'm not really clear about, because I'm new and I'm learning the process. But I want to say I do believe that every city should have a seat at the table and should be able to have a vote, regardless if they're a large city or bigger cities. Because in terms of the master plan, our dollars is being, also part of it too. So if we put in our dollars there, then we should also be entitled to have a vote at the table. Next thing I wanted to point out, as far as the facility amendment, coming in new, I haven't seen it. I haven't gotten any email about the facility amendment to see what it's all about for me to review.
Okay. So two things. You have a vote. You are at the table. The issue is the executive committee. The executive committee is formed to be able to do essentially the interim business that has to be done every month. We cannot have, in my opinion, can't have 28 members of cities and one on the county as an executive committee. You will get no business done. That'll be number one. So you do have a vote. Number two, we will make sure you have everything. The instruction to all staff is all communications go to every governing board member and to every city. So your city should have it, irrespective of that. We will make sure you have it.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So, Member Ryan.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to point out that we're still a year and a half away from next time we vote on the executive committee anyway, so I'm sure we could get that handled in between that time. Yeah. And yeah, everybody does have a seat at the table, and everybody's more than welcome to come to the executive committee meetings, and you have just as much as a voice as anybody on that executive committee meeting, except for the votes. And Mayor Bright Cruz brought up a good point, saying that most of the votes haven't been contentious anyways when it comes to that. And I want to emphasize how we're viewed as a governing body from the outside world, and our perception has to be a positive perception, and we have to show that we're moving forward and getting things done. So with that, I'd like to make a motion to approve the facilities agreement as is.
All right, I think we have a motion on the table right now.
Good.
Member Patterson. We're
Thank
still
you.
in discussion on this motion.
Thank you, Member Chair. But
Before you do that, I need a motion to extend for 15 minutes. Motion by Member Dunn, second by Member Orland. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Member Patterson.
yeah, I just wanted to clarify though, there's a motion on the floor for facilities amendment.
I'm sorry, one more time.
I just wanted to clarify, there's a motion on the floor for the facilities amendment. However, we have not reviewed that item on the
Yes,
agenda.
so- I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you because
There's a motion on the floor to amend the facilities amendment. However, we've not gotten to that portion of the agenda yet. I thought we were discussing the master plan and potentially doing a motion to extend or move it to April 17th. I'm not comfortable voting on the facilities amendment yet, without that. One, the second question is, I personally, I don't know if anyone else, but I have not had my city attorney take a look at either of these items, the master plan or the facilities amendment. My understanding was that the board attorney here was who we would be deferring to as it pertains to the business that we're doing here. Am I mistaken? I mean, I'm still trying.
I've given it to my city attorney. I've given it to our staff.
Because our
and this,
attorney is,
including the drafts, to make sure that my staff didn't have any issues.
I mean, I gave it to my staff. However, because it has not been agendized yet, our attorney is to some extent taking the position that the board attorney here would be the appropriate person to give any legal opinion prior to it coming to the commission. So I just wanted to clarify or get some perspective on whether or not anyone else had their attorney weigh in outside of the county attorney.
Yeah, I've had our lawyers look at it. I mean, look at everything, the drafts, because they're not giving the opinion to the SWA. This is the SWA attorney. He's not your city attorney. City attorney could say, hey, I have an issue with this. I don't know if you've thought of that. So we've gotten comments back. So whatever happens here today, I would definitely loop your city attorney in, and I would not suggest that they wait until there's an agendized item. The idea is to try to get all the legal issues. That's part of my frustration of not hearing some of this. So I would strongly suggest you do that.
But that's interesting to me that if your attorney reviewed it at the city side, that they didn't see or have any opinion that perhaps the county attorney had.
Yeah, neither did anybody else until yesterday.
Not suggesting that obviously, I don't think that they're
that's
incompetent. It's interesting that here we are, if folks have already had their folks review this stuff that, and so now I'm kind of feeling inclined to support the April 17th as well, because I feel like, I did not do that, but I didn't do it because I wasn't aware of what was going on. I just didn't recognize it was appropriate. All right, thank you.
We're done.
So Crystal, we share a city attorney, and I've shared the document with him, and he was also invited to one of the presentations with the team. And so he has also said to me that he doesn't want to issue an opinion until after it comes to the, even though he has it, and he was a part of some of the meetings, so he's aware. Yeah.
Okay. We have members who have your cards up. Matt Wood. Sorry, Member Colburn.
About an hour ago, it was said that we couldn't vote on the amendment because we weren't voting on the master plan, so we weren't going to vote each other.
No.
I think we have gone so many different scenarios here. At this point, my vote would be a no vote at this point. I am fully willing to wait till our next meeting, whether it's the 17th or whatever date that is. And I've had an opportunity to go over every new thing that was presented to us over the last few days with both staff, my attorney, And I'll make sure that I schedule a workshop for my colleagues as well before I can vote yes on any of these two items.
So I welcome that, but I want to be clear to all the cities. Even voting yes, and I'm not suggesting, even voting yes does not in any way suggest anyone's doing anything other than bringing it to their commission for full consideration. Yeah. It's saying this is where it's at. Go think about it. So everybody can choose how they want to move forward on this. But to the extent a member says, I'm going to vote no, not today, I'm not talking about today. I'm going to vote no because my colleagues on the commission have not agreed to the master plan, the facilities amendment, I'm not sure that really sends an appropriate message of what we task the governing board to do. And that's simply to recommend moving it forward and the approval of it. That being said, I know there's a motion on the facilities amendment. I hesitate, if we're going to have no votes, I hesitate to start generating no votes. That sends a message to the community that somehow we're divided. We're not even divided on an issue. This is a procedural issue. And I won't force it. We'll call the motion. But no votes send the wrong message, I think, to where we're headed.
Chair, point of clarity on my motion. I think there is a lot of confusion. This is for us, if you have not workshopped this with your commission as of yet, this is where you do so. We, as protocol in my city, before we workshop anything, we put it on the workshop agenda. So my colleagues have the opportunity to review any of the backups that I put on the agenda. I have to give direction to staff today to do that because our workshop is next week, Wednesday. This is an item that will be on the workshop because I attended this meeting today. So if we don't move forward with this, I then now have to explain to my colleagues, which we've workshopped this twice already, that we could not come to an agreement to discuss this. And that makes us, they look at us not having our priorities straight. And it puts me in a bad position with my colleagues and staff because we've been talking about this for 2 months. They've provided me with feedback. We've created a memo. We've done all the steps with our attorney. And now I'm saying with full confidence, this is how we're moving forward on. I'm reporting out to my colleagues. That is why I'm saying if we can't agree on the master plan, let me at least present the agreement to them.
I think there's an easy cleanup, Matt.
Yes.
I think there's a very easy cleanup here, and I'd ask whose motion is it? Nancy's. Here's my suggestion. I think you separate your motion. I think the first motion, hypothetically, should be to table the master plan, but you did it in 2 and 1. So I think for the purpose of that, I think everyone could get on board with that. And then if we're talking the second step, which still is predicated on the first, then it would be a second motion to move the ILA. I'm just trying to separate it out because I think that would, facilities amendment, I think that would give everybody, it's cleaner, and I think it would allow everyone to feel more comfortable, Chair, to your point, and hopefully have them both unanimous as 2 different motions. That's all. So we step 1 it, which then, that would be my only suggestion, Member Mater-Bowen.
I had interpreted the motion as a motion on the facilities amendment alone. We had not addressed, it never raised the master plan. It wasn't.
Let's do that first.
Well, we have a current motion. Do you want to withdraw the motion and do a motion to table the master plan?
So I would make a motion to table.
Wait, you have to withdraw the motion in the second. We're going to do this procedurally correct. You have to withdraw. We'll come back to the facilities amendment.
I withdraw my motion.
Okay. And the second withdrawn as well. Yes.
I make a motion to table the master plan until the April 7th.
I'll say. You can make it continue rather than table. I don't have to take it off the table,
Yeah,
etc.
exactly.
Just procedurally, just continue it until that meeting.
Motion by Member Rydell, second by Member Caggiano. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Member Mater-Bowen.
I move that my motion, I move to move forward with the facilities agreement.
It's to recommend. It's to recommend it.
Recommend it.
You don't get to approve.
Yes, I move that we move forward with the recommended facilities amendment.
Okay, motion by member Mateo Bowen, seconded by member Shuham. Any discussion on that further? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Let the record reflect both were unanimous votes. All right, well, we're out of time. And so when folks ask why is it taking us 7 years to get here? All right, can I have a motion to adjourn? Motion by member Dunn, seconded by member Rydell. All in favor say aye.
Aye.